Hello, it's Dave March, the Spyguy, and I'm streaming from my little situation room because for some reason it's empty right now. But I wanted to. We had the big breaking story of the day is the Venezuela situation, and some of the panelists want to get together and talk about it. But I thought we'd dive into it a little earlier than that by covering some stuff while they gather and present themselves and join the channel. I was watching Deep Dive earlier, or listening to Deep Dive at work earlier today, and it was kind of an interesting dichotomy of what was going on in the world today. While we wait for them to gather, I'll start streaming that, and we can react to Daniel Davis's discussion, because I found it kind of interesting that for someone who is such a person who gets what's going on. Sometimes turns to being a boomer, and you will see that in this video where it's like, I don't know. Anyways, I'll start to play it, and we can react.
The United States has captured Nicolas Maduro and his wife in an attack that started at 2 a.m. local time in Venezuela. As you can see on your screen right now, there was several major attacks from air power, helicopters, and just tremendous explosions throughout the various parts of Venezuela. We have information that there was some special forces in the United States that conducted an incredibly effective snatch and grab. There's many things I want to talk about during this show today, but we want to first of all bring you up to date on first exactly what did happen, how the military operation took place. As we know, and this is a very fluid situation, we're getting lots of partial reports, so we're going to tell you what we know, and then we're going to talk about some of the ramifications and the consequences to this that may follow, because there is the issue of what happened, especially the military operation up to this point appears to be just spectacular, exclusively from a military perspective, and how successful it was at getting the operation successfully accomplished.
Yeah, this reminds me a heck of a lot of the Suez Crisis in 1956, where the British and French pulled off a stunning, spectacular operation to seize the Suez Canal from the Egyptians, and still got kind of screwed over in the end. But yeah, we're watching this very spectacular thing. What I want to really say first off is, thank God this has been resolved, right? Not necessarily resolved in the long-term stratification, but we've been watching here on this channel for the last couple months as people like Larry Johnson and other people come on and say are worried that basically Venezuela was going to be Vietnam 2.0. And I kept saying they didn't have the forces necessary to do this. Now, I kept thinking it was going to be the Hezbollah base off the coast, or Hamas base, or what, the terrorist training facility that Maduro was giving to the Middle East in his thing. I thought that we were going to see a Grenada-style raid. That's the amount of firepower they had. Instead, we're getting this. This is even less worrisome than what I thought was going to happen. So anyways, that's what I really wanted to say about watching this reaction, is that we see, and we got some people coming on. So it is Wasserman is here. Hey, how's it going?
Very good. Just any word back from Michael after you started the
No, I sent. He's got the link. He's had it as far along as you have had it, and yeah.
Okie dokie. Wow, so I came in midstream. What are we talking about?
I'm just talking about Daniel Davis's deep dive. He was talking about this whole situation with Venezuela, and there's going to be some reactions to it. I believe we're joined by my friend Brian, who has been on the show previously, and back when it was more of a interview show than what we're doing now with it. But yeah.
I just finished listening to Alexander Mercouris. He claims that the administrative state knew absolutely nothing about this operation before it happened, and he's I find generally well informed and has good judgment. And if this is true, I think the implications are profound.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting that we were able to keep this compartmentalized in that particular way to prevent those guys. And just it reminds me a lot of like what happened why the Battle of the Bulge happened. you have the fact is because everyone in America, or Americans in the Allies, were basically listening in on through Bletchley Park. They were listening on to all the German signals. But
Yep.
by that point, Hitler figured something was going on because all his battle plans were being revealed. So he thought it was a bunch of high-ranking generals who were basically turncoats and were selling information to the Allies, especially after they tried to kill him.
Yeah, I would see how that would color his opinions.
Yeah, so he started. So all the operational orders for of the Bulge went to all the commanders via SS officers with the suitcase handcuffed to the SS officer.
Yep.
So they were able to achieve total surprise because no one, they got around the system. They knew they were being spied on. They didn't know how, but they decided to do something about it. And now if that's true, the administrators, like all these times we're hearing about Benjamin Netanyahu visiting the White House so many times, and people are like thinking that has to be because he's secretly controlling Trump, and it's like, no, Trump's giving him orders because he can't in person because he can't trust long distance communication systems anymore.
No, well, this is for sure. I think Trump's reliance on face-to-face communications is clearly established at this point.
Yeah.
But well, I would say, so my theory. My theory is that Trump has been playing stupid and incompetent in order to buy time to make his play. And if I'm right about that, and if it's true that the administrative state knew absolutely nothing about this operation, then the implications are profound because it means that Trump is revealing his hand.
Yeah.
He's revealing that he can get things done without anyone finding out, and that would mean that we're about to see a lot in a very short period of time.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. Now, I've heard, I did definitely listen to the Duran's reaction to the situation, and they're like, hey, look, short term, this is great for Trump. Long term, who's going to end up running Venezuela? I'm like, well, yeah, I get it, but
no, that's because Mercouris, and everybody has their lens through which they look at things, and the lens that you use to look at things colors your assessment, and so Mercouris, I think one of his lenses is that he doggedly takes everything at face value. He doggedly takes official positions at face value. So he never once, for example, questioned Joe Biden's competence. During the Biden administration, Mercouris would always, routinely report on Biden's administration's actions as if Biden himself was a competent leader making decisions.
Right.
And so, this is something that I know about Mercouris, and I just accept it. This is his worldview, is that, maybe who knows what he believes inside of himself, but as far as his official external pronouncements, he operates on the basis of accepting, authoritative sources at face value. That's how he works. And so, his analysis of the Maduro affair, is is, I feel, an accurate representation of the official, professional diplomatic class. So all right, so okay, I've gained an important fact here. I take everything Mercouris says as a accurate representation of the diplomatic class's position on things.
Yeah.
And nothing more. It's like,
yeah. There's nothing going on behind the scenes or personality complex.
He's very balanced. I mean, when I say the international diplomatic class, I don't mean that he's, he actually, I believe, is very neutral and very balanced, and within that framework, he does his best to be factual and not, not propagandistic. So, I greatly respect what he reports on and what he says, but, I remain aware of his lens or his position, right?
Mhm.
There's nobody that I listen to on a regular basis that I don't feel that way about. And, and I try and apply the same critique to myself.
Yeah, same here. I find things interesting. I try to give a viewpoint on different things. But for me, one of the things that happened for me is that, so I belonged to a group called the National Security Decision Making Game. And the reason I ended up joining them is because I kept playing the game and kept winning so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that so many times, they bring you on staff and then use you as a ringer. So I was one time we were running like the country of Turkey as a game, and I was brought in to play Erdogan. And I said to the guy who's running it, sort of like, got any tips for me for playing Erdogan? And he said, just be yourself. And I'm like, oh, okay. You're telling me I'm literally Erdogan. Okay.
Well, that's an interesting. I don't know how I feel about that, but all right.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that was kind of it. But that's
David,
my
that's lovely.
I will be Erdogan in your game.
Yeah. Well, I that is interesting. That's an interesting observation, because let me try and square that with what I've observed about you. So, because I would, this is, no offense intended here. I would say that I think that the probably the primary characteristic of Erdogan, in my assessment, is shrewd self-interest.
Yeah.
And so I guess you were playing that game that way.
Yeah, that would definitely describe my presidency of France and my running the was it the CIA of Korea with 100% less torture was actually written on the card.
Yeah, completely realpolitik, completely devoid of ideology. Just really shrewd, operator from a position of what suits me at this point in time, what suits me best. And I think we talked about that a few days ago. That was it you or was it David that said that there is nothing permanent? It was David quoting somebody. Yeah. But I guess you operated in the game that way as well.
Yeah, that's kind of my look at life. Unfortunately, Michael does not seem to be around right now. So
yeah, he disappeared again. X terminated his conversation at the critical moment.
Yeah, I know. What's he done to? I said to him once, "What have you done to piss off X so much? Did you kill Elon Musk's dog?"
Well, I'm not sure that it's X. I mean, if I had to guess, I would guess that he's being brigaded. He's got on somebody's he got on some shit list, on some activist shit list. And I wonder if there's a way to determine. I think those lists are public, actually. I think we can find out if he's on one of those lists. And so they just hammer him with they just report him like a machine gun.
Yeah, well,
that was my assumption. I didn't, because those groups still exist, they're still active, and so I didn't assume that it was X that had a problem with him per se. I thought it was some activist group on X.
Yeah, he does definitely. His style of talking on X Spaces would definitely get him into more trouble than you, me, or even David S. David will just drop down out of it and leave it, but Michael will be like screaming right at them at the top of his lungs.
Yeah, it's very interesting too, because when you see him professionally, he's nothing like that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you ever watched any of his reporting.
No, I have not yet.
He is so calm and so level-headed, and so his professional demeanor is so different from his personal demeanor that it's really something to see. You should seek it out.
Yeah, I will after the stream. Yeah. So you're not getting David S, but we're going to do this. So do you want to watch some of this Daniel Davis deep dive and comment on it?
Yeah, sure. It'll be new for me, so let's go ahead.
Okay.
I'll eat an orange while you're doing
and the
it.
objective attained, which is the capture, not the killing, but the capture of Nicolas Maduro. But then there's the larger ramifications for the legal justification and what this is going to mean. We're going to cover all of that today. First of all, I want to go because literally minutes before we came on air, President Trump went on Fox News to explain some of what he was doing. Here's how he described how Maduro was captured.
We had to do it, but he was in a house that was more like a fortress than a house. It had steel doors. It had what they call a safety space where it's, solid steel all around. He didn't get that space closed. He was trying to get into it, but he got bum rushed so fast that he didn't get into that. We were prepared. We had, massive blowtorches and everything else that you need to get through that steel, but we didn't need it. He didn't make it to that area of the house.
Okay, first of all, I'll just tell you from a military perspective, given that everybody in the world knew the probability of an attack was very, very high, and Maduro himself knew what was probably coming, the fact that we were able to get in there and capture him without too many casualties, we actually don't know. Let me just point that out. Even at this point, even with all of these explosions you see on the screen right there, we still don't know how many people on the ground have been killed. But given the size and scale of some of these things, it's got to be a considerable number of people killed. But at least according to what's been reported here, they were able to take the president without any bloodshed, at least on him and his wife. But the fact that everybody knew this was coming and still the U.S. military caught him by surprise before he could get into his safe room is just astounding. I mean,
yeah, that's kind of my take on that. It's just kind of like crazy that we've watched this situation. This woke up to my first notification this morning was from Piers Morgan saying, well, that's an astonishing thing. That's true. And then I opened it up and I'm like watching, oh my God, holy crap, this is hot.
Well, yeah, it truly is astonishing. And that goes back to my earlier comment about the significance of this. This is Trump announcing to the world that he can operate independently of the American administrative state when he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
That everything Trump just said there about, he's bum rushed. I haven't heard that word in a long time. Too fast. Yeah. And they were prepared. So he's telling everybody that he knew exactly the layout of Maduro's location. He knew there was a safe room. So this is Trump announcing to the world that he knew everything about everything. And yet his opponents inside the American power structure knew nothing about anything.
Yeah,
or at least that's how we all hear words through our different filters. But if somebody spoke to me like that, that's what I'd hear.
Yeah.
I knew everything. You knew nothing.
Yeah. For me, and also like I've just been wondering because I've been watching and I've covered with some of the Larry Johnson and other people who are talking about like Vietnam and how this was all about going like conquering Venezuela, and this is nothing like that. This is no Iraq Cobra 2 style in 2003 invasion. This is a small surgical strike in the thing, which they did have the firepower for. So for me, there's been supposedly like a Hamas training camp on some island. So I thought we were going to see a Grenada style event, but even this is nothing. This is like, a special forces raid in the middle of the capital, which is astounding.
That's a really good point, because when the Alexes were saying that that this is just another neocon operation and it bears all the hallmarks of a neocon operation, I was thinking to myself, no, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how neocon operations work. One of two ways: either they can buy the silence and they spirit the former leader out and provide them a safe haven, mm-hmm. In exchange for their silence. Or if they feel that they can't buy the silence, then they leave them there to be massacred by the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen a neocon operation where it's a snatch and grab. And notice that reports of Maduro's current location are noticeably absent.
Trump was asked by Fox and Friends about it. They said he was on the Iwo Jima, and they're transferring him to New York City to stand trial. And I guess
So what does that tell you? Huh?
Yeah.
That I mean, again, is that a standard neocon operation?
No. No.
Yeah, no, this is truly, actually, the more I learn about it, I mean, this is really historically significant. This, what we have here is the implications are that Trump has managed to carve out, through Hegseth, has managed to carve out a very large number of armed forces loyalists.
Yep.
And, a plane can be shot out of the sky. Oh, so sad, too bad, something happened, we don't know what. But you can't really sink the Iwo Jima.
Yep, that's true.
And this furthermore, this means that there are a massive number of servicemen on the Iwo Jima that Trump and Hegseth can trust, which is
yeah. I think the rank and file of all the soldiers are all going to be standard and loyal. I see the corruption usually at the general staff level. Anyone over 1 star is pretty much the people you got to worry about. And it's been the stratification, enlargement of the star system.
Fair enough.
Very Italian. Like, they make the Italians in World War II look competent. The current general staff.
Fair enough. But I mean, there is always a weak link, on any ship that size. And so what this means is, I mean, let's be blunt about it. It means that the rank and file is so consolidated behind this that nobody dares, turncoat, because they'd be taking their lives in their hands. That's what that means.
Yeah.
And what we've seen for many years is we've seen quite the opposite. We've seen people operating in service of the administrative state, secure in the knowledge that as long as they served those interests, they were untouchable. What we're seeing here on the Iwo Jima is something completely different. We're seeing the exact opposite. We're seeing that, the implication is that serve the interests of the administrative state over Hegseth and Trump, and far from being untouchable, you won't make it to the mainland. You'll disappear overboard.
Yep. Got ourselves our favorite commenter, JP. It's mostly political once you get above 05. Yeah. I was talking to a friend a while back. I did a couple interviews with him, and he was 06. He retired in 06. And I pointed out to him, there's every general has a colonel whose job is to basically gatekeep for him. And if that colonel does his job properly, he'll become a general. And he replied, I guess I was terrible at being a colonel then.
No, but still, like I said, doesn't mean that there aren't rotten apples farther down the chain.
Oh, yeah.
And so, seeing people who in the past would have operated as agents, like I said, secure in the knowledge that they would be untouchable. And so it's very, 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 in my humble opinion.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's sort of like you see it in a lot of movies where it's like we get rid of the curmudgeons who have been running the show for so long, and there's always been some new blood who, if given the shot, will take it and the company in new and interesting directions. And I think that's what your comment is really showing us here, is that there is this new blood that has been given rings, and they're exploiting it instead of being usually crushed by it. We'll see if it works out long term.
That's part of what I'm saying, but it's not really what I'm really saying. What I'm really saying is that the halo or blanket of invulnerability has been pierced.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm saying. I'm saying that if that's what this says to me. Now, of course, I'm nobody. I know nothing. I've never even, I've worked for the armed forces, but I never served. So what do I know?
Yeah.
I just call it as I see it. I just did that in my simple-minded, common sense brain. That's what this says to me.
Okay. Well, we'll watch a little bit more and comment. I'll cut when I think it's appropriate.
Now, I just have to say, from a statecraft perspective, from the operation, the surprise was complete and total. And the operation carried off just spectacularly. I mean, there's always the risk that, there's going to be a gunfight, that people could be killed in the crossfire, that Americans could be killed, that the target itself could be killed, et cetera. And apparently none of that happened. In fact, what President Trump, I think we're going to see in one of the other sound bites in a minute, no Americans were killed in this operation. The president said that I think one helicopter was damaged or was hit by enemy fire, but was able to be recovered. So at least as of now, all of our aircraft have returned. Was according to the president, no Americans have lost their lives. We're still waiting to see what happened on the ground.
Just going to pause it there briefly. That is also interesting to me that he's talking like that, because just in special operations business, we've come so far from the desert and trying to rescue the Iranian hostages, like in the late 70s, to being able to go into the middle of Venezuela and grab the president with no casualties. It's just so far interesting how special forces have developed over the time to allow that to happen.
Well, I think the McCurris and the Alex's joint assessment of that is probably pretty accurate. This was a deal done with the military power structure in Venezuela, just like in Syria, and so that all makes sense to me.
Yeah. So I do agree with forgot about that when Mercurus had mentioned that. Yeah, someone got bribed to allow this to happen.
Not someone, a lot of people.
The old line from I Claudius, when the guy's making his coup attempt against Tiberius, and Caligula comes in and sort of like, well, who's the number two? And he's like, what do you mean? Well, this guy is plotting against us. He's got to have a subordinate. Why don't we just bribe him? And that took care of the coup.
Yep. Well, it's I should have asked David last time. I forgot to ask David, but I will say something else regarding the Alex's comments about standard neocon operation and the standard denouement of these types of operations being disaster for everyone involved. I haven't really been tracking closely what's been going on in Syria, but one of my Syrian expatriate friends recently sent me a little video implying to me that that life in Syria was actually pretty nice at the moment, relatively, right? Implying that situation is stabilized and it's generally safe and pleasant, at least in Damascus. And I wanted to check out that, I wanted to sound out David and see, because originally I was concerned that, and I've been saying this for years, I think before you and I even met, I had been partial to Gwyn Dwyer's opinion that the collapse of the Assad government would result in an Alawite massacre. And, not to mention massacres of other minorities.
Yep.
So if this Trump-engineered coup in Syria did not result in this kind of, and I haven't really followed it, but if it actually did result in some kind of genuine domestic peace and relative happiness, then that is something worthy of mention.
Yeah, it means that whoever was bribed is going to accept what's her name, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, as president, but with the understanding she'll be a figurehead, and then they'll get sanctions relief. That's, I think, the direction of travel, and that's what we're kind of seeing in Syria. Once you we just want to replace the current guys and have the victory of the win, and then we can just use that as an excuse to get rid of these crippling sanctions on these places and let them thrive again.
Yeah. So, do you have any opinion on that, or is that really a David question?
Oh no, I think that is
The
really
situation on the ground, I mean.
Yeah, I think they just want to get rid of we haven't been really seeing the massacres. Certainly, Venezuela doesn't have the religious ethic.
No, but I meant in Syria. How are things on the ground in Syria?
Well, I don't.
David always goes into the deep minutia, and I've never been able. I never stopped him and asked him, pull back on the stick, give me a 40,000-foot view. Generally speaking, what's it like on the ground?
Yeah, I haven't really been paying attention as much on Syria, but that does seem to be like we can bring. It seems the Trump administration is really trying to make these places safe to do business again. That's kind of what I've come to in the last 5 minutes of thinking about it, is that we replace the dictator who's been running the show because that was the narrative for so long. We bring in the fresh blood, and then we have them not massacre everyone like crazy. And we're going to allow the remaining power structure to be there. Like what the big mistake in Iraq was, they got rid of the Ba'ath Party. And we're going to keep the Ba'ath Party in these places. We're just going to change who's running the public face of it, declare victory, and let business go in there and make business again.
Well, that a couple of months ago in one of our discussions, I mentioned that it was possible that Trump was taking the Putin playbook, by which I mean Putin's playbook with the Russian oligarchs and the deals, the fundamental deal that was on the table, I think is universally acknowledged, which is stand down and keep what you have, or continue to make trouble for the common man and die.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did observe that Trump was potentially or possibly engaging in those sorts of negotiations on a world stage.
Yeah. And people misread it, unfortunately, from his own base when he brings in like all the Facebook guys or all the tech billionaires in there, and he's giving them the Putin speech, and they're like, no, he's in bed with the tech oligarchs. And it's like, no, he's telling them how the world's going to work from now on.
Oh yeah, although I will say that whenever I see the screaming memes that he's in bed with the oligarchs, my immediate first thought is, okay, what we have here is a sock puppet. Mm-hmm. I perhaps I'm too paranoid.
Yeah, you have every right to be paranoid, especially after COVID. But there's like two stories to be told there. It could be he's taking his orders from them. They're giving him the riot act, or maybe he's doing the riot act to them. He's Putin style. And time will tell which one of those two narratives is out there. But I do find it suspicious that we only hear he's in their pocket narrative out there, which usually tells me it's probably the opposite of what's going on.
Yeah, pure sock puppet stuff. I mean, there's so much sock puppet stuff going on social media right now. But my brother and I, as adults, one day, my brother and I were at my mother's house, and we were upstairs, and my mother was downstairs, and she shrilly, insistently yelled something up from downstairs, and I said, "Sure, Mom, right away." We were in our 30s or 40s, and I said, "Sure, Mom, right away," and then went back to talking to my brother, and he just looked at me, and then he smirked, and then he started to laugh, and the moral of that story is that she had overdone it in our lives. She had done that too many times, and so it just ceased to have any effect. And he thought that was funny when he saw how little effect it had on me. And I think that I like to believe that we've reached that stage in social media where the division and the psyops and the sock puppet accounts have so overplayed their hand that they've reached a point where a normal person pays no attention.
Yep. Yep. That is exactly what's happening in a lot of places. Like, that's what I'm seeing out there.
Yeah, just filtered right out, and I I think I was trying to remember. Oh yeah, it was I was listening to Carl Benjamin today talk about the Zoomers and how and I've seen this, and this is what I was talking about the other day with you and David. I've seen it with my own eyes on these spaces that I listen in on with von Clausewitz, and our moral bugaboos mean nothing to them.
Mm-hmm.
They are completely unconcerned, with the boomers' magic words that.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. Boomers' magic words.
Yeah, well, that was yours. I stole your phrase.
Yes, it is true, but it is. Yeah, we're probably going to be joined shortly by a friend of mine, Owen, who's been on. I interviewed a while ago on the show, and he's like, he has no words for what's happening. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and what's funny is that I've recently been promoted to boomer, which is I suppose nice for about 20 years. Boomers ended in 60 and Gen X started in 65, and for about 20 years, everyone in between 60 and 65 was in no man's land. Sometimes they called us tweeners, but I've noticed that they've recently upped boomer to 65.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess just to close the gap. So, I'm proud of my promotion.
Okay.
I'm
happy to be in Gen X. I was talking to a woman earlier today about she was mentioning Reality Bites movie, and I was like, oh my God, we have so. I went to high school. I saw it movie to high school, right?
I think my new personal slogan is going to be not bad for a boomer.
Yeah.
Alliterative. I like it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely Piers Morgan is definitely a boomer, and those magic words, just as we discussed, you call someone a racist, and they're supposed to be like, "Oh, I'm not racist. Don't accuse me of that." And like, "No, I'll own it." Like, are you Islamophobe? Yeah, I am an Islamophobe because I'm a Christian. Like,
you say that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, it's like if you notice throughout history until World War II, we never let Muslims into Europe. Why is that? You think that's not a coincidence? There's a reason, because they're an anti-Christian religion founded by people who didn't like Christians. And they're allowed to be that. Just you got Christians over here and Muslims over there. Keep them separated.
Yeah. No, it's but again, it's like my mother. Just the shrill scolding has been overdone, and nobody's feeling scolded anymore.
Yep. And JP, yes, you're right. Which Trump would put in much preferably more effort to domestic issues and draining DC. Yes and no. Unfortunately, these international issues are affecting you domestically as well. Like, you have millions of Venezuelans in your country because of Maduro and his policies. And if we can make Venezuela safe for Venezuelans to live and eat there, they don't want to come to your country anymore. That's something you got to understand. Like, all these international conflicts that Trump is dealing with are affecting you on the home front to the same exact extent, or more so, than your domestic problems. Yes. Like, why do you have 80,000 Somalis stealing $10 billion in Wisconsin? Because those people should be in Somalia.
Yeah,
but they're in your country because you couped their government.
Well, no, I don't even think that's, they're in your country because you couped your government, I think is a facile excuse. And two wrongs don't make a right. You'd first have to convince me that in some way this made something better. That in some way it was a genuine compensating or valid compensation. I'm not convinced of that. You know, and furthermore, it's totally separate from and disconnected from the question of, if you don't like it where you are, what makes you think that you're not going to bring whatever you don't like along with you to someplace else?
Right. Exactly.
But I speak as somebody who's been an immigrant in many places, temporarily and permanently. I certainly. It's funny because I'm married to an English Canadian, and the and she greatly resents. Although she can speak French, she doesn't like to because she has a resentment and she feels that she was made to that she was unfairly discriminated against for the actions of previous generations of English Canadians. Right.
Mhm.
So, and she's not denying that things were unfair to the French Canadians. What she's saying, it's not a good reason to be unfair to her.
Sure.
But I'm an immigrant into Canada and to Quebec from the U.S. And for me, I always took it completely for granted that I would learn French, and I have no such resentment or I'm quite fluent in French, and even in both. I'm not quite fluent in French actually, but I'm quite fluent in Quebecois French, and I have no emotions about using it. In fact, I like to keep it. I would hate to lose it, and so I use it as much as I can.
There you
So there's what is my point? My point is that when I speak about immigration this way, I speak as somebody who's been an immigrant and thought it was completely normal that you adapt to and absorb the cultural values of the place you're in, and you leave the ones from the place that you came from behind.
Yeah, that is usually how it works. Unfortunately, we because of the policy of the last 20 years, we've been seeing it not work that way, where people bring in groups of people who will not assimilate, and into countries also that have no history of assimilation like that way. Like up until the Blair gets in power in what 97.
Mm-hmm.
The net immigration rate into Britain is like 50,000 people, and it's 95% Anglo-Saxon people living in England. It's like or Israel being an ethno state. And then these people thought they could copy and paste Canada and the United States and even much of the South Americas into places that don't have no experience with that and completely mess it up.
Yeah, that's mess it up. I mean, it's I guess I think it's. I'll just say it like this. I think it's reasonable to demand that an immigrant arrive in a country with the intention of contributing to that society on the society's existing terms.
Yeah, and also the other situation is many of the previous immigration waves did not like the large-scale immigration wave into the United States and Canada in the turn of the 20th century and earlier. There was no welfare state, so you could not. You had to participate in the system as is because it was that or starve. But with the welfare state, you have every ability not just to run these large-scale scams, but you also just have the ability to keep your traditions and culture separate, and you can have your enclaves because the welfare state will work with that. And in the past,
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Basically, we're it's back to incentivization. You're saying that there's no incentivization to assimilate.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Well, I did send Owen the link, but maybe he's getting ready. But we'll see if I'm going to just message him one more time here. And just, hey, And you know what? We can now move ahead a bit more with Venezuela with Daniel Davis, because he had a few more points I wanted to cover before we get into it.
Let's now shift to what President Trump said further in that same phone call. And by the way, there's a planned press conference for 11 a.m. Eastern time in the United States today. We will be covering that press conference, and then we're going to be doing another analysis show right after this. So once we get more information, we're going to bring that to you. But right now, one of the first questions is, what was the justification for this? And President Trump provided this.
What he did with drugs is bad. What he did with a lot of other things is bad. But what he did was sending hundreds of thousands of Tren de Aragua and drug dealers. And they emptied out their jails into our country. They emptied out, if you think about it, they emptied out all of their mental institutions into our country. What he did there, and every other thing, is unforgivable.
Okay. Now let's look at some of the more difficult ones. If I said, yeah, the military operation itself was amazingly executed, the justification and the use itself of the military is deeply flawed. And let's be crystal clear on this from the beginning. The claims that the administration is using, that President Trump mentioned here, that he has mentioned in the past for getting this done, are completely spacious, and they're either grossly exaggerated or outright untrue, and in any case, even what's claimed does not meet the legal criteria in the U.S. Constitution, in U.S. law, or international law. There is no justification for this, period.
So what do you think about that?
I don't like it, but seems rather artificial to start complaining about it now.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought too. It's sort of like this started with the authorized use of military force during the George W. Bush and even earlier things. Mm-hmm. And basically, like, you had military actions happening across the world to deal with terrorism. And now you're going to start complaining about this, like, at this stage? I'm sorry. I find it kind of ridiculous. Like, here we go. And here's Owen.
Excellent.
Hey, Owen, how's it going?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear and see you. And this is my co-host, Adam Wasserman.
Hi, Adam.
Well, you being down there, I know you as one of the more traditional MAGA types. I'm actually curious how you think of what's happened today or this morning.
I woke up this morning. I opened up my phone and I saw a screenshot of Trump's post from Truth Social. And to be honest with you, I actually thought it was a parody. I thought, I know, God, that's hilarious. That's so funny. It's like, what the hell? Can I curse?
Yep.
I said, what the fuck is he doing fucking around with Venezuela? It's like, what are we going to do, a regime change? And there was a pause as I realized, as I read the comment on top of it, that it was not a parody. That we had invaded a country in the middle of the night, captured their president. What is this? What is the 100 Years' War? We're capturing princes now? What are we doing? And, yep. And he's going to go on trial at the Southern District of New York. And this is a good thing. I don't know. I've been checked out since then because it's like, I haven't really been checked out, but it's like I can't. It's like staring at the sun or something. Mm-hmm. What's the plan? We're gonna replace him with someone else. We're gonna leave a vacuum in Venezuela, or we're gonna try to install some godforsaken puppet government that we're gonna have to support. We're gonna be on the hook now for how fucked up this fucked up country is. Mm-hmm. We're gonna be everything that goes wrong now. It's gonna be laid at the feet. So GOP once again, it is the party of regime change. It's the party of war, of invasion. Democrats are gonna they're already up in the polls. Republicans are already depressed in the polls. They're gonna make hay out of this like a medieval peasant to feed all their cows. This is insanity. This is crazy. It's stupidity. I can't even describe to you how retarded this is. It's infuriating. The other thing that it exposes, the capability of the execution of this is such that it reveals where the priorities of the government are. So we're capable of, suddenly, in the middle of the night, invading another country and stealing their president and exfiltrating him to our country. But the Maryland man from MS-13, we got to take it. We can't even deport somebody from our own country. I see people going out and saying like, oh, people telling me, no, this is a good thing. Oh, screw this guy, yada, yada. You know, blowing up boats in the ocean might be popular. Invading a country is not. And
well, I will push back and say, look, this is what I actually tweeted at George W. Bush's account this morning. It's like, why couldn't you have done this with Saddam Hussein? So instead of sending an entire army into 200,000 men into occupy Iraq, instead we just grab the president of the country in a small operation that probably involved no less than maybe 50 people on the ground, which is pretty. And Adam or Wasserman and I have previously discussed the reason why this happened is because they bribed the locals to hand him over.
I will say this is not typical forever war type, spending to enrich, the military contract, military industrial complex. I'll just say that.
Well, I got to tell you, you break it, you buy it. Colin Powell, 2002 to President Bush. Now you own it. Mm-hmm. I've heard floated around this woman that's the only thing that I know about her is that she's pro-Israel or something, and how much she loves Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't know how much of a coincidence it is that Benjamin Netanyahu was just at the White House, and that it looks like the go-to puppet for U.S. to install if that's what we're going to do.
Oh yeah,
because
she's going to be. They'll put her in. But the local, all the local people, she's just a fig leaf change, much as we saw, and we were talking about this earlier with Syria. So they take out they're like, look, we got to get rid of the guy. He's now out. What's his name from Syria's out. He's fled to Russia. We got our new guy coming in, and now we can make this country safe to do business again. And that's what I think we're seeing with Venezuela. Is that you're going to see the sanctions lifted. You're going to see the ability for people to make money again in Venezuela, and you'll stop seeing as many people immigrating to your country and my country because they can't make any money in their country anymore. It's only the handful of select few. That's the way I think the strategy is working. However, Trump does terrible messaging, even though he's the greatest marketer in the world. He doesn't explain this to people.
No, also the break it, you own it sort of thing is certainly a valid point, and that's why I was asking David earlier about Syria, because my full expectation in Syria was that we were going to see a lot of genocide and an unlivable country, and my Syrian expat friends are indicating to me that the change has been for the better. At least if I understand what they're communicating to me. Mm-hmm. And so I was just asking David what his intelligence was on the matter and, what things are like on the ground in Syria. But, it would be interesting to say the least if it turns out that Trump's interventions in Syria did not result in a worsening of life for the average Syrian.
Mm. As you make these countries stable and successful, they'll stop coming to your country and taking your jobs. And I think that is what the plan is. But like I said, they don't do a very good job messaging this. And
I think that's on purpose.
Then you get here are very angry about, like, once again, your country being sold out to Netanyahu, when it may be something completely else different.
Well, this would be why messaging is so important. I mean, none of the groundwork that would have been necessary to sell people on this was done.
Yep.
None of it. Instead, you spring it on them like it's a mouse trap, and all people could think. I mean, I went bought some beef bones, talked to the guy, said, "Hey, apparently we invaded Venezuela." He said, "Guy says, yeah, I thought we were putting out fires, not starting new ones." This is, and the other issue is that this is not happening in a vacuum. This is going to have domestic, guaranteed when the Democrats get in after the midterms, however big of a margin they're going to have, however many seats, this will be the pretext to eventually impeach Trump. They may start right away, or they may do what Rich Barris has said and start by impeaching Hegseth and the people that surround Trump, and they'll target the most MAGA ones, the ones that are most genuinely on his side, isolate him, then take him out, like taking out Agnew before you take out Nixon. And this is part of a broader one. I don't agree. Like, this is going to mean there's going to be stability. I don't. I'm not sold on this. What I'm hearing when somebody tells me that is, we got to fight him over there so we don't have to fight him here. Well, there's now Somalis that are running Minneapolis and Minnesota. There's now Muslims that are running Detroit and renaming the city streets for Muslim terrorists, murderers, and then yelling at the actual Americans there. So that whole fighting him over there so we don't have to fight him here, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't sell. That dog don't hunt. So I think that also let's take a step back and remember early on in those first few months of the Trump admin, when the rose-colored glasses were on and it was looking pretty good, Trump gave a pretty great speech where he said, "Gone are the days of regime change. We're not going into other countries, and we're not. Countries are improved by the people there." Now you're telling me, I don't know any of the details of this operation other than it was done with helicopters in Delta. Yeah. And you're saying, well, it was locals there that gave them up. Even if that's true, I don't see that means that now it's going to be some stately, orderly society full of stability and all the Venezuelans are going to go back. Why would the Venezuelans go back? They've probably already popped out a couple anchor babies. I assume that they don't practice safe sex and they're good Catholics and stuff. And they're going to pop out some anchor babies who have full citizenship right based on how we determine what birthright citizenship is. They're going to have free food, free housing, all this other bullshit that we also seem to not be able to turn the spigot off on. Why would they got it made? Why would they go back to a country where it'd be struggle, it'd be work? Do they have such civic nationalism for Venezuela?
Yeah, I think a lot of them used to have that, but they left it because they weren't getting any they weren't being allowed to do their civic nationalism anymore because it's basically a communist country. But that's so some of them might go back. But yeah,
based purely on my experience of all the Cuban Americans I know, yes, they would love to go back.
Well, that's interesting because there's in Israel and there's an awful lot of Jews in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Wasserman as one of those American
what's more
Jews
likely to happen
about that.
Yeah, I didn't come from Israel, and I have no interest in going there.
Okay, well, there's a lot of people now that are Venezuelan in America that are going to have no interest in going to Venezuela.
No, my father didn't come from Israel. My grandfather didn't come from Israel. My grandfather's grandfather didn't come from Israel. My grandfather's grandfather's grandfather didn't come from Israel.
Yeah. Well, okay.
I know a lot of Cuban Americans, and a lot of them would love to go back. That's all I'm saying. And it's just my personal, I'm not saying it's a statistical reality across all Cuban Americans. I'm just saying that's what I know.
Well, that's a theory. But what I have seen is that we bring in...
It's not a theory. It's my practical experience. All I'm saying is...
That's not... Your theory is that they say they would go back. Your theory is that they actually would. That's what I'm saying is a theory.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that. Honestly, you're right. Sometimes people's words don't match their feet. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I hear.
Yeah.
People establish themselves somewhere.
Yeah. I
especially
don't think the ones that are currently in your country are going back. I'm just saying we're stopping the flow. closing
I
off
don't-
the spigot is what is the attempt here. I don't know if it will work.
But I would say we don't need to do regime change to effectuate that. What you need to do is focus domestically. That would stop if you sorted out the issues domestically, where you say, I don't know where those people that want to get out of Venezuela are going, but it's not America. Then the problem is solved, and it's solved the way it should be.
Trump claims this is a domestic issue.
I mean, okay, but I mean, I can claim anything. It doesn't make it true. And he
Doesn't
didn't
make
do.
it, doesn't
he didn't
make
do
it
any of
false
the
either.
stuff.
He has an argument. Engage the argument on its own terms.
I
You know
have
his
been.
arguments.
I have been. I'm saying none of this
So you
pans out
think
to that.
you think that that Venezuela plays no significant part in the drug trade, and the drug trade.
It's not at all what I said.
Well, that's what Trump's was. Say engage the substance.
His argument that we need to take out the president of Venezuela because of the drug trade. Yes, that is the charges they brought against him, narco terrorism in the Southern District of New York.
engage the
Again,
argument
look at the
directly.
venue they chose.
Engage
All
the
right.
argument directly. Do you think that there's
one
no
of the
truth to that?
swampiest? I am engaging. I'm saying blowing up the boats in the ocean, that's a popular thing because they've left Venezuela, they're heading here, and they're full of drug criminals and drugs, and we want to blow them up so they don't harm our people. That's not the same thing as now going to war with Venezuela.
Trump's argument is there's no war with Venezuela now, that there was a criminal mastermind, and that it's better to arrest the criminal mastermind than it is to blow up the minions. Do you disagree with that? If that happens to be true, are you saying that you disagree with that?
Yes, I'm saying that I disagree with what Trump has done.
Okay. All right.
Because here's the issue. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Do you understand? This is now going to dominate the news cycle. This is going to have consequences. We have not accomplished. Where is the accountability for the criminals in our own country? That's what people want to see. None of the MAGA people are baying for the blood of Maduro. They're baying for consequences for the criminals of our own country, the people that have really affected us.
Well, it seems to me that wherever somebody's violated federal statutes and Trump has the power to enforce federal law, he's been doing it. Now, if your argument is that Trump should impinge on the state's sovereignty and start arresting criminals that are under state jurisdiction, I'll hear it. But I don't think that Trump has been hanging back on the criminal element. Give me examples. Yes.
He should be charging political people. The only people he's charged, I thought about making a 12 days of Christmas, but just the first year of Trump, of all the things that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is, there were like 3 indictments, 1 grand jury. The only reason we had the grand jury is because the statute of limitations was about to run out. Mm-hmm. Someone pointed it out, and they rushed this shitty indictment through, which means there won't be a conviction. The idea that Trump's DOJ is in any way competent, one, he hasn't cleaned house at all. Bondi has been good on drugs. Bondi is going after drugs. This is clearly coming from Trump. I'm not willing to say, I'm not dancing this dance anymore now of saying, it's these other people in the administration. Well, you know what? When you're the president, you pick those people. Now, I had an issue with Bondi right away because it should have been Matt Gaetz that was in that position. He's not in that position. Why not?
There was no way Matt Gaetz was going to get confirmed. I'm sorry. That was ridiculous. They should have grabbed the guy from Texas. He could have been confirmable.
Paxton would have been great.
Way Matt Gaetz was going to be confirmed by that Senate at all because of how much a firebrand and how much of frankly, he was an asshole to multiple senators in his own party. He was not a team player. He could never get past.
Team player. Yeah. I don't like people that are team players for the GOP are exactly the people that we wouldn't want in the administration anyways.
I think Ken Paxton would be much more effective than Pam Bondi.
Yes, Ken Paxton, but then why not pick Ken Paxton? Why did we get her?
I don't know why. Well, because she was
friends with Susie Wiles
based on personal loyalty to him, and she defended his cases in Florida, and this is also a lot of the Trump administration has either come from two places, New York or Florida.
I know. But these Florida people have not exactly been doing
So
the Lord's work.
Who would we like to see arrested?
Oh, pretty much half the CIA at this point.
I would say the 8th floor of the FBI. I mean, yeah, give me the entire top floor of the FBI building. Any agents that here's what you do. You just arrest people like Biden did. You give them charges. You need to get yourself courts like they did in Washington and just charge them there. Go court shopping, and you are at war. We have had war waged upon us under the previous administration. Now you must wage war against them. This is game theory deterrence. Instead, what I'm getting is stuff that's going for who? The deep state interests, special lobbyist interests, foreign lobby interests, Israel. I mean, this is exactly what people voted against. This is not America first. You're saying Trump's making an argument. One, he's really not making that argument. He's doing that. He's doing that after the fact. Some ex post facto justification because they wanted to spring this, I guess, probably as a surprise on the Venezuelans. But that's again, it's like myopia. It's like we want to be able to do this, but what are the second and third order consequences domestically where things actually matter? Are we going to now be giving out a bunch of loans? We're $40 trillion in debt, or about to be. Are we now going to be giving out loans or maybe IMF loans, who knows who, to Venezuela and rebuild their infrastructure? What about our infrastructure? What about our bridges that are all rusty and shitty? What about our people?
So what I'm hearing, and I don't mean this in any bad way, I'm just being factual. What I'm hearing is that you don't think very much of Trump.
Not anymore.
I don't think you ever did. I don't think that you ever thought he was particularly smart or had particularly good judgment. Because if you did, you would probably have a different perspective on what's going on. So, which is okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You maybe voted for him because you have a certain agenda and you thought he would advance that agenda.
The one that he campaigned on? Yeah.
But it does tell me that you don't think very much of his smarts and his capabilities, which is fine. That's not meant as an attack. I'm just observing. Because if you thought that he was really, really smart and adept, you would probably have a different opinion on what's going on.
That's not true. So
I think
I supported. David has known me for years, and he knows how much I have supported Trump and how much I would say loved Trump. He was our gladiator in the arena. Taking the slings and arrows. They're not going after me. They're going after you. I'm just in the way. And that was true. Okay? He campaigned on no new wars. He gave a fantastic speech in the beginning of his administration to the international world and said, we're not doing these regime change things anymore. This is done. Countries have to determine for themselves. They are not improved by outside forces coming in and conquering them and then installing a puppet government to try to build this infrastructure.
All right. Well, listen, are you there?
He might have a blackout, but you can probably speak to him.
No, I'd like to wait. First I'd like to let him finish, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
He might be having technical difficulties. I don't think he left in a huff.
No, I agree. It seems like a reception issue.
Yeah. But yeah. I can speak to Owens as the opposite side of things, where he's coming in from that viewpoint.
And you probably know what I'm going to say because you've heard me say it before, which is informed by my personal experience in large organizations.
Yeah. Well, I guess he's dropped off.
Let's give him a second. Let's give him a second. We can talk about something else.
Yeah.
So my AI research is going very interesting. Very interesting. I think I told you about that last time, right?
Oh, what was that, sir?
My AI research. Did I tell you what I
Oh
was
no,
doing?
I haven't heard about your AI research. We can talk about that.
I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you what I was doing. Oh, okay. Well, I just came out with a couple of papers. Um, so my perspective is um, is is somebody who's been in technology and information technology for about 30 years, and unlike most executives in the industry, I actually have very deep technical knowledge. I write code.
He's
Oh,
back.
here. Okay. Yeah, please finish. Owen.
What?
I said, please go ahead. I wanted to let you finish.
Yeah, this is not something. It's not like I don't see. You're saying, "Oh, I think Trump is dumb and he doesn't have any intelligence." The man did real estate in New York and got away from the was able to complete big construction projects without getting dirtied up by the mob. So Trump is not stupid. That's a dumb liberal position that they have, or a neocon position where like, oh, he's just a dumb guy. He's not even good at business. Yada yada yada. That's not my point. Just because somebody has intelligence doesn't mean they're going to do the right thing and they're making the right moves. And he's doing stupid things.
Okay, well, fair enough. So then, now that I know where you stand on that, let me share. So everybody sees everything through their own filter of their own experience and everything, right? So my professional experience is about 30 years in rather large, pretty large organizations, like 10 to 60,000 people, international organizations. I spent a decade working in the world's largest NGO. Um, the I cannot tell you how many times I have taken over a troubled department and let things blow up on purpose. One of the most fundamental realities of being an executive of a large organization is that nobody's going to tell you the truth. In my opinion, there's no possible way that Trump blindly believes everyone around him. Because someone in Trump's position knows that everybody around you is always lying to you in ways big and small, and sometimes not even on purpose. And so when if you look at the depth of the bench that's arrayed against him, a frontal assault would be idiotic, in my opinion. And I was really I think Trump has. I think he had to, and I think he has been, playing dumb for this first year, allowing because if you allow your enemies to believe that they're winning, then they don't double their efforts. If you make your enemies think they're losing, then they'll redouble their efforts. And so, if in my world of these large organizations, and I was talking about this the other day when David S. was on. I've known some extremely. I shouldn't say I've known. I've met some extremely rich and powerful people like the heir to the Molson fortune. And these people walk around dressed like bums, riding old bicycles, driving old cars. They give no outward sign whatsoever that they're shrewd and dangerous people. They let people, and you often see this, by the way, David said that, you see this in power brokers in South America. They play the bumbling indigent idiot to sucker everybody into a false sense of security. And so my perspective on what's been going on in the last year is that Trump has been deliberately being chaotic and allowing the deep state to think that if they're not winning, at least they're succeeding in some measure to divert him. And what I saw today was the first big flex from Trump. He did something that nobody in the deep state had any clue was about to happen. If you believe Alexander Mercouris, and I do believe him about this kind of thing, nobody in Washington knew this was going to happen. And now Maduro's on a boat with several hundred, I think it's probably something like 800 crewmen on that boat. More? As David?
I said I was going to look up the Iwo Jima.
So now he's on this boat with an enormous number of crewmen, and that's another power flex because if Maduro makes it to the mainland alive, then what Trump has just demonstrated is that he has control over the armed forces, and the deep state can't get to him through that. So yeah, over 1,000. Thank you. Yeah. So this is a massive flex. This is, in my opinion, possibly, I won't say for sure, but I'll say that it could be the first move of the kind of thing that you, Owen, wish you would see.
Yeah, given what I know about Maduro, him being in the hands of Trump could be very interesting, given what we know that supposedly the Catholic Church, and Biden signed some sort of deal that allowed to flood the border with all the immigrants that you got, and with the cartels. That's definitely something I've heard somewhere else. And I guess Owen's having another technical issue, but yeah, that's what I've heard. So I'm a little sketchy about going to the Southern District of New York. I would be much more happier if this was going to somewhere in Florida, for example. But then again, the SDNY is full of all the corrupt prosecutors that might play ball for you. So
yeah, I mean, I think I said this before you came on, Owen, but I have suspected from the very beginning that Trump was going to do something like what Putin did, which is make a very credible threat that if you play ball, you can keep what you have. And if you try and keep up your shenanigans, you'll die.
Yeah.
I guess I just have to disagree, Adam. I don't see this as some big flex. I mean, it's a flex, but it's not, in my opinion, the kind of flex you're talking about. Because really, what we want to see is things that are changed domestically. What we're not seeing is reform domestically. Which is what they're really afraid of. What they're actually afraid of would be consequences for them personally, being held personally accountable. The idea that this is a flex because Trump is pretending So first of all, that would be to ignore the differences between coming into any old organization and coming into the presidency. Your first year as president, you can't waste any time. And you notice at first, no time was being wasted. So the idea you could it's like some kind of Sun Tzu, when you're strong, pretend to be weak. When you're weak, pretend to be strong thing that Trump is doing. I don't agree. When Trump is strong, he was being strong. Because here's what's happening. He is losing. He has busted his own coalition that ushered him into the White House, and that was his political shield and provided him the political capital to actually accomplish things. So now that stuff, that's not going to happen. So the only things he'll be able to do now, he can't.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I readily acknowledge I could be wrong. But I don't know what to say about it. I could be.
Because you only have so much political capital, and your first year when you're ushered in, that's when you're in there, and that's when you have that cudgel that you can wave around, and you can say, "I have the mandate of the people."
Fair enough. I mean,
I won a big election. I got all this. All of you people rode in on my coattails. I'm incredibly popular. He made all these campaign promises that were 80-20 issues, super popular, and now he's picking fights on things that are not these 80-20 issues.
Well, fair enough. For what it's worth, what I see is astroturfing of stories of Democrats stealing the tax dollars of Americans. I see astroturfing of stories of unfettered immigration endangering the very lives and safety and security of Americans. And, like I said, it could be that, my wife thinks, for example, it's not on the mainstream news, it will never matter. I don't really see it that way. I see that these are local issues. They might not be in the national news, but they're local issues, and local Americans know what's going on at this point, and the word is getting out. And that's a different electorate. It's a different what's the word I'm looking for? When you're a politician, you have the people who voted for you.
Coalition.
No, that's not the word I'm looking for, but let's just use that word. It's a different, it's reaching a different segment of the voting public. Now, maybe I'm wrong about all this. I really could be, God knows I'm not the world's smartest man, but, I just see that these are possibilities. I'm not sure about anything. When I meet people, one thing that always amazes me is that when I meet people who are dead certain about something about Trump, and that always seems to be the most ridiculous position possible, because he's not a guy you can be dead certain about anything with.
Mm.
So the issue with the Somali thing is that it's true people are pissed off. This would only help Trump and his administration if there was then accountability.
Yeah. Basically.
So if there's not, then that's actually going to hurt him even more. And actually, this thing breaking open right now, the Trump admin has responded to this, but they haven't actually done anything real other than cutting off funds. They're we're going to cut off funds to Minnesota, right? But what about people actually getting punished? What about rounding up all these Somalis and actually kicking them out of the country? People don't have any patience to say, oh, yeah, well, sorry about that. We're going to work on it. If there's no accountability, then that's going to do a couple of things. One, it drives apathy because it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter who you vote for. So people, the Trump type people that would give victories to the Republican Party are a lower propensity voter. Okay, so they're already less likely to come out. You have to give them a reason to come out. A lot of them haven't voted before. They don't have the practice of going out and voting, right? They're not regular voters. What you have to do is they come out in a big way and they vote for you. What you need to do then, right away in your first year, the year you're saying he's playing dumb and he's deliberately losing, well, that would be retarded because you need to give those people immediate victories. You need to let them show right away, hey, you voted for this guy, he got in, and now it's having a direct and immediate effect across the whole country. The people you wanted to see held accountable are being held accountable. They're being charged for crimes. They're being investigated. Their home is being searched by the FBI. We're going to arrest them, and we're going to call a bunch of OANN and Newsmax, and so that they can have cameras in the front yard the way they did for all the conservatives under Biden. You need to go after these. This is what I'm trying to explain. We are in a domestic war against people in our own country, and the people that voted, they think they have believed that it didn't matter who you voted for, that nothing will happen. And what Trump is doing is proving them correct. So we've been fucking around with these foreign conflicts and doing shit overseas all the time. And all that's done is cost us blood and treasure. And it hasn't made people's lives better. People's lives have only gotten worse. We're $40 trillion in debt. Every single day, a new scam is exposed, but nobody is really held to account. You want to arrest somebody? Go arrest Tim Walz. Go do a midnight raid with Delta Force on Tim Walz. I guarantee you his numbers go through the roof.
On what legal basis? Trump believes in federalism. He believes that states have sovereignty. You were saying that he shouldn't have gone into Venezuela and snatched their leader, and now you're saying he should go into Minnesota and snatch their leader.
We have far more interest in snatching the Tim Walz and charge him with treason against the nation.
Except we have far more laws against...
Go in, arrest his ass. We've done it before. We can do it again. We have done it before in American history.
We have far more laws against doing that than we do against snatching Maduro.
Okay, but who really would benefit from Maduro? Who is this for? What is these foreign entanglements?
I find your position inconsistent. That's all I'm saying.
My position is only inconsistent from your position.
Yeah.
You think that my objection to Nicolas Maduro getting kidnapped is because Trump has violated some rules-based order system. I don't believe in rules-based order system. Okay? My objection is not one in principle that it's principally wrong to wage war against a foreign nation or whatever, yada, yada, yada. I don't believe in a rules-based system. But what Trump is doing is breaking his promises. Our conflicts, our biggest issues are at home. People elected him on a domestic agenda.
I
His
don't think
promises
Trump,
in foreign relations were in disentangling us.
yeah, I was a single issue voter, which was war. And although I'm not super crazy about him snatching Maduro, that doesn't violate my problems against war. He's not starting a war. He won't. Trump has not started any wars.
Things
We were
have a
worried he'd
way.
start a war here, and he didn't. He just grabbed the president. And now he can claim mission accomplished to pull that battle group out of there and make those people happy.
Well, the issue is if you break it, you buy it. And now anything that can go wrong in Venezuela can be laid at the Trump administration's feet.
True.
And it can be said, look, now the situation is even worse.
True,
Whereas
but
if
that's a separate
what you
kettle of
do is
fish.
blockade them like we
Those
did
are
with
separate
Cuba,
things, by the way. So that is true, but that is nothing like starting a war.
well, okay, here's the other thing. You know, you just can't go sticking your dick into any hole in the ground. There might be a hornet's nest. All right. You think that things have a way of escalating and getting out of control. Who could have foreseen that the First World War would break out because of an assassination of an Austrian prince in the Balkans? Maybe Bismarck, but anybody else? I mean, things can get out of control, and you really can't be fucking around doing stuff you promised you wouldn't do. We weren't going to do regime change. Now, I understand the argument that at least this is in the same hemisphere as our own nation. At least it's in the same hemisphere. But this is still breaking promises. And the problem here's the other thing. You know what? He could have gotten away with this if the opposite is true of what you're saying. You're saying his first year he's playing dumb and he's lulling in like he's weak. I think he is weak. They've exposed all this fraud with Doge and stuff, and then they shut Doge down, and none of their cuts have been instituted. USAID, they chipped that name off that building. Next administration comes in, they can put it right back up. Now they've done some damage by shutting off the money spigot, but that can be opened back up again. None of this, everything that Trump has done can be just as easily undone by the next president because
what if Maduro is part of that money spigot?
That has nothing to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that has nothing to do with the point that none of his changes have been. Basically the Republican Party hasn't passed like anything, and they passed a big beautiful bill.
Is that a Trump problem or is that a Lindsey Graham problem?
It is a Trump problem because Trump has been. Here's another Trump failure. He is terrible when it comes to endorsements. It is now reached the point where the base is either going to go extinct because of the things that he's done, or they'll have to ignore his endorsements. You don't want that. Okay? You don't want to, because he'll turn it, instead of crowning a successor, like picking J.D. Vance for VP, instead what you'll have is, one, people ignore your choices because you keep picking pieces of shit like Lindsey Graham, which he has done consistently. Take a look at Tony Gonzalez down in Texas, where he's up against Brandon Herrera. He endorses Tony, Brandon loses. Come back again. Brandon Herrera still almost won. Now he's running against Tony Gonzalez again for a primary, and Trump once again comes out and endorses who? A swamp creature. How are you going to drain the swamp when you're the one filling it with water?
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying, and I feel like that sometimes too. But like I said, my personal experience is that you can't always snap your fingers. We're not Thanos. We can't just snap our fingers and suddenly overcome all resistance just through boldness. It's just not the way life has worked for me.
Mm-hmm. You have to go in with a hammer and break things, and that really isn't what he's doing. He was doing that at first.
I will tell you what I'm talking about. My personal experience is that if I went in with a hammer and broke things, like you said, you break it, you buy it. On the other hand,
that's different. The people voted for him to break things domestically.
On the other hand, if I go in and I just let things break, and then I swoop in and fix them, then I'm the hero. And my entire corporate career was based on that MO.
The issue is people would rather have a proactive president. He is a reactive president. When he was proactive, he was never more popular. This is based on people's perceptions as well. You can't have it be that you're constantly behind the 8 ball and inside of the loop.
I'm not sure.
Inside
I'm
the
not
loop
sure
that
that.
others have set, the reactive loop where you're reacting. You want to be waging war, and the
I'm,
war that needs to be waged is domestic, and
I'm
he's
not.
not doing that.
I'm not sure that Trump is in a popularity contest anymore.
He's still in the popularity contest till the midterms. After that, he wouldn't have to worry about it.
Well,
He
again,
is, because he's interested in his legacy.
Hmm.
He's an old man, and he wants to be the savior of the republic and have a legacy that cements him as the fifth face on Mount Rushmore, which is what he could have had.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would agree with that. I would say that's probably true. But that long term, being right over the long term is different from short term popularity. And David, about the midterms, there's different ways to campaign and different ways to but just as though the Democrat campaign in 2004 was not Trump, I think that the net result of the revelations of fraud and the driver's license scandals and all that is that it might be enough to be not Democrat.
Okay. Well, and he's having another issue. Paul from the chat, or Patrick, Paul. But Paul is joining us. So Owen's having technical issues there. Paul, good to see you again.
Howdy. Yeah, I just wanted to get everything set up. Well, Happy New Year. New Year, same US.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always nice to hear Owen pop off. Howdy, Adam. I don't know if we've had the pleasure.
No, not yet.
Pleasure to meet you, Adam. I'm Paul O'Brien.
Yeah,
nice
so Adam, I know from X Spaces, we used to do these like big spaces on X, but X has become quite an echo chamber. So we often are talking geopolitics with him and another guy, David S. And hopefully one day we'll get the Prince on. But he has seemed to be on some sort of persecution list from what we could tell.
Which one?
Oh, a friend of ours. He's a
Polish journalist.
Yeah, he's a journalist, but for some reason, according to Adam, when he's on he's completely professional, but when you get him on a space and he starts to talk, he goes into these insane rants. I always worry he's going to have a heart attack.
Are they like funny rants or like
a lot of swearing?
It's like John Belushi on Weekend Update. If that doesn't do too bad.
Can you enunciate a little more?
He has a very Mark Levin style.
Adam, can you say what you said again? Just enunciate a little more into the mic.
I said it's like John Belushi on Weekend Update if you watch him on Saturday Night Live.
Okay. Oh, and we're getting a lot of feedback from your side. Okay.
Thanks, so.
Yeah, it was. This is something that I brought up in book club. I think our friends said what happens. Like there was a lot of discussion of what happens. Like if you go through this and goes wrong, and I asked the question, what if everything goes right? What's the upside? Like what if everything goes perfectly? What's really the upside here? And it seems, at least from the onset here, a lot of stuff has gone right. And I don't know, this is almost too clean. Like it was almost prepared. I don't know if you guys had.
Yeah, that was our early speculation that they have you watched Claudius, Paul?
I don't think I have.
So it's a show about the Roman emperors, the Claudian dynasty. In one episode, basically, there's a guy played by Patrick Stewart who's planning to overthrow Tiberius, and Caligula comes in the room and he's sort of like, so who's the number two? And they're like, what do you mean? Well, there's got to be someone more ambitious than the guy who's plotting the coup. Why don't we just bribe him to kill the coup guy? And they're like, oh, so that's our speculation. What's happened with Maduro is that, they bribe the current and the people beneath him with saying, hey, we'll give you money, but we'll also cut down the sanctions if you let us take Maduro for free.
I mean, they bribed the security?
Yeah, they bribed the security, said, hey, give us Maduro, install this woman, you can control her, you get to stay all in your positions of power, and we'll give you sanctions relief. in exchange for Maduro because we want him for the reasons we want him.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense, because my thing is, if that was an option that could have been done earlier, that I feel like we could have done away with the whole parking the carrier off the coast. But in my own, okay, so if I may be so to introduce fan fiction, because Rich went off this morning on how no MAG is basically done now. There is one final plot like pivot that can be done before midterms that I think can literally switch it around, because at this point in time, on principle, I'm not showing up to vote for 2026. I'll be staying home just on. I know this is like started off really clean, but just on principle, we did not vote for this. But now that a precedent's been set, because JD Vance is on Twitter saying, you know, we need to, like, he's been indicted as a war criminal terrorist. There is another indicted person that is not liked in the world right now. And if Trump were to take this precedent and go arrest that person, I think that would literally take all of this in 180. Do you know the individual in question?
Are you talking about Netanyahu?
Yeah. That's the only thing that I could see. He like uses this as a precedent, and then because it would be the most Machiavellian play he would have ever made. Because here's the thing: there is actually only upside to arresting Netanyahu. Like that to me is a minimum 10-point swing in popularity.
There is an ICC warrant out for him.
That's what I'm saying. And now you just establish a precedent that we can go after.
Before we continue, Paul, I just want to welcome James in. He's usually our one commentator on our thing. So
your patronage is appreciated, and it's an honor to meet the comment section.
What's up, Paul? How you doing, man?
Doing well. But that to me would be the ultimate plot twist if he were to just arrest because they've been meeting a lot lately. If he were just to come out and arrest Netanyahu, I think that would just flip the script on everything. And now he's got a precedent. It's like, well, we've been arresting, war criminals. And if he were to just flip a dime on that, because he, finally reads the writing on the wall, I not only would I vote for him, I would donate to his campaign and block walk for him. Like if he were to just do something like that. And I truly think that's one of those things where if he wants, because he is a people pleaser at heart, if he wants to flip the public on a weekend, I feel he could do that. What do you think, Owen?
The issue is he's not going to do that. That's the problem. I agree with you that would be incredibly popular and that would swing things around. I also agree with you that we are going through the death throes of the MAGA movement. That has now happened, as officiated by the person that helped cohere it in the first place. It gave it its name. So what comes after that? My prediction would be the inheritor of the populist right and of the Gen Z dissidents and these people. That's going to basically be an America First type movement. The main commentator for that will be Nicholas Fuentes. And whatever the consequences of that are, I don't know. I don't know that that'll ever translate to any electoral victories. But that's going to be that movement, and it'll disappear into apathy, and it'll lead to leftist communism because of people totally retreating electorally and becoming apathetic and saying there's no point in voting. That's another total possibility that comes out of this.
Yeah,
I would kind of push back on that a little bit. I'd argue we're in this position because of that. Because if you look at the voter turnout numbers, especially in primaries, that's why we don't get good candidates. Nobody shows up for the primaries. So the people with the money and name recognition, it turns into a popularity contest. And it's always the people you don't want in office that win the primaries.
That's because the people that vote in primaries are the smaller subsection of people in the Republican Party that don't actually represent the party. And they're usually the ones that have an interest, some kind of special interest with quid pro quo, one hand washes the other, both wash the face sort of way. So, of course, that's going to be true. Also, we're dealing with a lower propensity movement. You have to at least the Democrats kind of understand the idea of they do fight for their base on issues and stuff. Now, obviously, they're also neoliberal and corrupt, but they still get things. They still actually fight for them. They don't hate their voters in quite the same way that the people we're describing do.
When it comes to the primary system, though, you do actually have people who upset and win. The problem, and Rich has pointed this out several times in book club and his show, is even when the outliers, like the outsiders, do win, the DC political machine comes in and basically says, "All right," and this is almost a quote to what Rich said, which is, they say, "All right, your little team here was good to get you through the primary, but now we got to win an election. Unless you take our money, you're not going to win." And that's where even people who are beating the grain, like, get taken over basically, and then who would be a good candidate and a good representative candidate gets turned into an establishment candidate because now they've become dependent on DC for their electability. And Rich has told this story several times where he's helped candidates win, and then they basically shove him off because the DC people tell that candidate to, that they can't win without them. And I think probably one of the best examples of this.
They're convinced they can't win without them.
Yes, they're convinced they can't win. But the thing is
that they wouldn't. They could probably still win, but they already get affected by the juggernaut that is DC once they make it past primary by threats of, "Hey, you're not going to get money. You're not going to get this,"
right?
And all this kind of stuff. To which I would say, if we really want to say screw them, candidates need to be more vocal and upfront. Hey, vote for me. These guys are telling me I can't win without you guys. Let's prove them wrong. The messaging is not. They're not continuing the messaging. A lot of them quit the messaging once they get past the primary.
What is Matt Gaetz with 500?
Yeah. I also remember reading this a long time ago, like 10 years ago, basically, this one Republican congressman was able to get away from this by basically selling out locally. So he was representing like Montana or Kansas. I think it was Kansas. And the Kansas Wildcatters just came to him and said, "Look, you just work for us. You don't work for anyone else, and we will fund your campaign and we'll fund all the money you need to be on your chairman, on your committee. Just work for us. Don't work for anyone else." And I think that's also a great way to get around this particular issue of like all these people doing this. Again, around DC is just say you find some local industry in your state and just become their champion. And that seems to be a way to get around that situation.
I think one thing that gets overlooked in all this too, as well, is your local, state, and county races, because that has a trickle up effect into DC, and that's the foundation for the DC part of the party. Is where all your money and your support comes from, is from the state, county, and local levels. If you start affecting that more at the state and local levels, it's not going to be a change overnight, and it might require some drastic things and doing things like you said, reaching out to local unions saying, "Hey, look, I know we don't normally align on stuff like this, but I think we can find some compromising areas in which I can get what I want to accomplish and get some stuff for you too as well." It's basically, we're at the stage of the game now where change is inevitable in terms of undesired change by one side or the other. The question is which right now it's looking more like the Democrats are going to walk away with this because of some stupid mistakes by Trump and his administration and his unwillingness to do what he was known best for, which is "you're fired." And we're in this conundrum of how do we dismantle this and still get anything accomplished and still have any headway. And what you saw was what you're seeing is a successful change in the Democrat Party, only because they're susceptible to stuff like that more so because of their mindsets and stuff like that. Whereas the GOP is, once it's solidified at the upper end, it's much harder because of the discombobulated nature of the GOP, of the differing mindsets and the being open to different mindsets. You don't get that mob mentality like you get in the Democrats, which makes it, which is a plus and a minus. It's a minus once you get certain groups of people unentrenched, and reshaping the party. So the question is, do we continue working within the GOP, or do we have to do something like what Musk has been toying with for the last couple of years, which is start a whole new party? Ooh, I would say starting a whole new
Very
party at this
difficult to do
juncture
that
is
in the
going to be
United
difficult.
States. I'm from Canada. It's very easy to do that. We blow up political parties once a decade around here. But the one thing the Democrats and Republicans agreed upon long ago is to make sure it was impossible for, say, a greenback party again.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
that's the one. That's the one
it's
thing
far
the
easier to take
DC
over
heads
the
are in.
Republican Party than it is.
Yeah, the DC heads are definitely, Republican and Democrats are both entrenched in the sense of that. That's the one thing they're in agreement is maintaining their power.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things are intertwined. To your comment earlier about how it goes from like the bottom up, it actually is more. It's unfortunately more top down, and it is both Republican and
It's
Democrat.
gotten that way.
Well, it is that way right now, and
Yeah.
I could give you examples of it happening in both parties. The recent example for the Republican side was when they ousted the former former Republican speaker, and input. Who was the former Republican speaker again?
McCarthy.
When they ousted McCarthy, and Gates, Marjorie Taylor Greene and company were holding out to picking a new speaker, and it was this big ordeal. And the states were applying pressure to the individual representatives, specifically the one that was applied that had to turncoat against Gates was out of Ohio, where they basically were saying, if you don't flip vote, we are going to draw out your district in the upcoming census. And that's how the states apply power against the state level applies the power against the local government on behalf of the federal government, because they could basically say, okay, you're not going to, you don't have to exist. We can literally make your seat not exist. And Texas, to a certain extent, did this with Democrats when they started wanting to play hardball, and they said, all right, we don't we're drawing you out. That's the state power. Now, why does the state do this? And what I point to next is what we're witnessing right now with Minnesota, where the Minnesota state receives block grants from the federal government. So why? So the question that should come up is, why should the state, or why is the state motivated to work on the federal government's behalf? Because the state institutions get block grants directly from the federal government, and if you're getting in the way of that, then you're messing with those state institution systems. And while the federal government really can't crack down on local government effectively, the state government can. So the question comes with the Somalis in Minnesota is, how does it get that bad? We know what's happening, but how did it get this big? How does it get that bad? And why is there nobody stopping this? And it's because it's the coordination from a top down level. And that's why we correctly say it's not just these local Somalis. It's Tim Walz. It's the Somali lady out of Minnesota, Ilhan Omar. They're all working together to make these corrupt machines work. So it's interchanging, but it is top down, and that's just it. And then you have the areas that are more localized, where in the middle of nowhere, where only God's with you out there. That's all they could do is corrupt, because there's no block grants getting out there. There's no, there's no strings for the state to care about, cracking you down unless it starts to affect the budget. So that's the inner nature. And the thing is, everywhere you find federal funding, you will see this relationship. In the red states, so in the blue states, you will see it with Medicare, Medicaid fraud. You will see it in the red states with the military industrial complex. You think this doesn't happen in Alabama? Oh, absolutely. You think this doesn't happen in Virginia? Absolutely.
Oh, I know it does.
That's what I'm saying. It's pick your your large government industry, that is because the thing is, if a local rep starts messing with that, now the state government's operations start getting interfered with, and then they start applying pressure onto them, and that's how that's where the states work on behalf of the federal government. So that's just the context or the recent history
this is
of how
all
that works.
very fascinating. But there's some, when getting to what's happening in Trump and MAGA, there are other events and other players out there that we don't necessarily know about. I mean, how many of you here are aware that a coalition of left-wing activists are planning on conducting a general strike on May Day in 2026? Full-on work stoppage nationwide.
Nope, didn't know that.
Yeah, that's coming down the pipe. And Democrats might initially cheer it, but these people don't like Democrats either. This is all these millions of communists that were grew up in your high schools, and they're organizing and they're getting ready to pull this off. So,
You said in Poland?
No, in your country, in the United
yeah.
States.
Yeah, I've been seeing all their posts where they've been doing their exercises. They go around and they train and stuff. They've been doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the biggest place that the feds like to go after and try to trap right-wing people would be any private militia or private training they have, which only weakens the country.
Yep. We're going to need those militias when the revolution comes.
Well, I'm going to be I got to say I'm pretty interested to see what Mamdani does here in New York, because his initial opening hand was a pretty aggressive stance against the sort of New York deep state. And I gotta admit, I'm kind of rooting for the guy. Like, I'm like, dude, like, fucking arrest these guys. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, he's a commie, I hope he fails. I mean, you know what? Like, burn it down. Like, if you can do it, I mean,
he's a communist. He's a communist only in name only. He's not. If you really pay attention to him, he's not.
I feel like I have been, and no, it looks like he's definitely. I mean, I'll put it like this: the people he's putting in positions are the radical types who do have some record of, being aggro, and were removed in the Biden administration for being a bit too aggro.
Yeah, the Democrat Socialist. I was watching a bit of America's Untold Stories last night, and they were talking about this Marx experience, Mark Ribera's experience. He's like, look, these people, and the same was true in communist China. When these guys got to power, they were not personally corrupt in the sense of enriching themselves. They were personally corrupt in the sense that they were able to go after all the bad actors who were sucking off the system and basically enriching themselves at the public's expense. They would just kill those people. I don't think we're quite there in the United States yet, but yeah, they'll go after them. It's just their solutions when they get rid of the old system that are worse.
This kind of gets in. I just lost my train of thought now. This kind of gets into the whole thing of like, where do we go from here, though? I mean, it feels like there's a multitude of directions in which we can go at any given point in time. What's going to be that trigger that sends us down which path? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, do we hang together and it ends up being we just slowly change form a type of form of government? I mean, is this kind of what our forefathers kind of warned us about, of having too powerful and central of a government? Is where we're at right now. Because if you're saying everything's top down, and like what you're saying too about the extent, Paul, with the corruption and stuff like that, trust me, I grew up in Alabama. Everybody complains about Louisiana. I can show you stories that'll make you laugh at Louisiana's corruption. I mean, it's always, in fact, I will say that is probably the single reason why I don't think it's really the Southern Baptist Coalition outside of the Indian reservations. I would say the single most reason why Alabama will never get a lottery or gambling is because everybody knows this state is corrupt beyond belief. And because, like I said, I've even said it publicly to multiple people. The only way I would vote for a lottery is that the only lottery that was authorized was the Multi-State Lottery Commission and its subgames, and the state cannot be in control of any lottery system. Then I'm fine with allowing that, because at least with the Multi-State Lottery Commission, it reduces the likelihood of them being corrupt and siphoning off money, and actually probably being the first state ever to bankrupt a lottery system.
Yeah. I think the direction of travel, and I think Owen would agree with me on this, is that we were hoping Trump would forestall this, but he's failed to do so. So we'll end up in one of two situations. 9 times out of 10, you get Franco. 1 times out of 10, you get full-blown communism.
I don't know that the history shows that you get Franco 9 times out of 10. I think I think more often than not you get the communists. I mean, and I think that
I know that's communist propaganda. I can tell you that. I remember talking to another historian about this, and I said, "So name all the times the communists won, and then name all the times they lost." And the list was like 10 times as long. We just never hear about it because all our institutions, especially our schools, are run by Marxists who don't want to talk about their failures.
And their current failures?
Yeah. So there was a whole bunch of communist insurgencies throughout South America during the Cold War. Almost all of them were defeated. You never hear about people who see Che's face on all those T-shirts. Most people don't know that he died in Bolivia killed by the CIA. I even watched the video. I listened to the podcast where they interviewed the guy who shot him.
Yeah, but now the CIA is communists. They're Fabian.
That's your
socialists.
problem now.
So I was going to say, when you said that they were all killed, I'm like, well, that's because of us.
Yeah.
Here's the issue. Nobody's going to come to save us.
Nobody
You
can.
have to save yourselves, like most places.
In fact,
nobody has the ability to.
Well, more likely than not, if any foreign powers were invited onto our shores, it would not be to fight on the nationalist side.
No. No, I think we'll see. Kurt Schlichter had a new book called Second Civil War, which covers a lot of this, and I think he.
Oh yeah, the Kelly Turnbull series.
No, this is a different one. This is a much more less funny one.
This will be more This will be more of a balkanization civil war. I mean, you got areas within states that don't like each other.
Well, it's interesting to. So the thing that really has caught my attention that I'm really glad entered the Overton window was Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweet of calling for a countrywide tax strike. To me, that is the final directly what is it?
Well, I mean,
that's the final way we could do this without it being conventional violence. Because really and truly, that to me actually solves because the thing is, you don't have to rely on the federal government to stop spending or pick and choose. Because the thing is, all of your basically Somali type, everybody who's taking money out of the system fraudulently, they're cut off, and all of the billionaire types who literally keep their wealth where it's at via stock market or through government contracts, now they're not getting paid, and now the stock market isn't being consistently stimulated by basically inflationary dollars. So once that spigot turns off, pretty much everybody I don't like gets cut off, and I don't know.
How do you go about doing that with it being automatically withheld?
Well, the thing is, it isn't automatically withheld. Technically, the businesses cooperate.
You can go to your boss and say, "Hey, I'll handle my own taxes. Don't take my money off my form."
Whenever you fill out your W-2 and you're given the option to put a 0, a 1, a 2, or whatever there, that's you telling your boss how much you want them to withhold. It's the business's cooperation with the IRS to file withhold those taxes on your behalf because
Right, but I think they're still liable for it if you don't follow up.
Well, it goes to the immigration thing. Yes, the people who cross the border illegally are liable for breaking the law. But if there's 10 million of them, how do you enforce that? It's the same thing with the businesses.
Right. Yeah, I get the concept. You overwhelm it. The problem is you're not going to get too many of these companies, those that have already employed. You're not going to be able to get enough people to be able to get to change their withholdings because the companies just don't want to be on risking being on the hook or being held liable civilly or criminally. Because I guarantee you, if you go back, there's probably a law somewhere in the IRS tax code to where they can also be held responsible.
Well, they can be held. Okay, but what does being held responsible looks like? What does that look like?
Probably more like a fine would be more.
So if I'm not going to pay taxes, why would I pay a fine?
No, I'm talking about the companies being held.
No, that's what I'm saying. If I'm striking from taxes, why would I cooperate and pay?
You're assuming the companies would go along with it. Is what I'm saying.
What I'm saying is the
company has no choice. Is what I'm pointing out.
Yeah, and that's where. And again, I don't know how it would look.
You know what? This would be a really good question for Barnes. Barnes would know this way better.
Well, it's purely theoretical, and but the thing is, it's in the Overton window, and people like us are talking about it. Like, yeah, that's a tax strike is appropriate and actually a good idea because if the government can't self-regulate or self-regulate and enforce its own spending laws, the entire social contract is a prisoner's dilemma that requires the cooperation of people like us. So if one half of that social contract is not cooperating, it's at our expense. So if we have no incentive to cooperate, then we shouldn't, which means the whole system, is for the worse. But the thing is, you have to do that to get cooperation from everybody. And that's the issue with the Somali stuff, not only being found, but what happens in the next 12 months when nobody gets arrested, nothing happens, really changes.
No consequences.
Exactly.
Anyways, before we get into
why should I be paying taxes?
I just want to finally welcome Michael here, the Prince, to the chat. Finally get to see your face for the first time. Wasserman, I've been interacting with him for a while, but Michael is the one who's in Twitter prison, from what we can tell. Hi, Michael.
Yeah, but it's an interesting concept.
Can you hear me?
You can't.
Yeah, you can hear me.
You can't arrest business owners for not paying their taxes because the fact is, then it's the same outcome. Like you need the cooperation of businesses to make this whole system run. And if you cannot yield cooperation, this whole system falls apart. And I think that's where it's really important for these independent journalists to keep showing and keep putting the fraud in everybody's face, because if it doesn't radicalize you enough to pull the trigger, it should radicalize you enough to say, you know what, I'm not going to file taxes. And if that, I'm either not going to file, or I'm going to, I don't know, I don't know what it's going to look like, but that is the way.
And I've noticed a really sharp uptick in, and I don't think it's algorithmic in my particular feed. I've noticed a really sharp uptick in, let's call it, citizen reporting of overwhelming fraud across the country in different states, and as well, a dramatic shifting of the Overton window, and in the acceptability of talking about consequences of unfettered immigration.
Well, the thing is, you got state attorney generals that can do stuff about this too. I mean, it's not limited to federal government. You can still, even though it's federal funds, states do have the right to prosecute, because fraud is fraud, whether it's state funds, it's county funds, local funds, or personal funds.
Well, I think you and I agree on this, James. It's mostly a state issue.
Yeah, that's where I kind of have to agree. And and it also goes into the whole point of disassembling the FBI. For the first time, I actually heard somebody actually give me a decent breakdown of how do you handle stuff once you get rid of the FBI. That's fine. That's fine. Tell me, that's fine if you want to get rid of something, but give me a plan of action or an idea of action of how do you deal with what that former agency handled, how do you go back to that? How do you propose we go back to that? And that's the best one I heard was going back to task force, where you basically deputize a group of local, county, and state officers to handle federal level crimes that answer to local and the federal and local state DAs. And we already have that now, where you have guys that are attached to the Marshals Agency. You've got guys that are attached to the FBI and ATF. You know where most of your cases that these ATF and stuff are done? It's the task force guys that gets the 90% of the work. They do 90% of the fucking work.
I think that any solution that proposes, federalization or increased federal powers is a lousy solution. Your
powers you're federalized only in so much as you to work with the federal DAs to prosecute federal crimes. And you stay with it. You only stay.
No. I was agreeing with you, not disagreeing.
Yeah, yeah. You don't go in, and actually, that's better because you have a redundant system of, okay, if you can't take it federal, the federal won't pick it up, then you can turn around and take your case and take it to the state. You got two avenues of approach.
My fundamental agreement with you is that I've come to believe very strongly that the farther away the power is, the worse it is, and the closer to you it is, the better it is.
Yes. That's why that's one of the things that I will say that's interesting where I am in my home state is I'm in the largest county in Alabama with some of the largest agencies in Alabama. And the county has tried to multiple times consolidate power, to which all the local cities, even the smaller ones, have turned and basically said, fuck you, fuck off. We're not doing that. We want to maintain control over our area because they want to have a say in how things are enforced, what type of rules are enforced from a code enforcement standpoint, and so on and so forth. They want that local control. They were like, if you want to do a county jail, great. In fact, constitutionally, you're obligated to run this jail. That's the one thing. Courts in jail are the one thing they are constitutionally obligated to do in the state of Alabama. They don't even technically have to have a sheriff's department from a patrol standpoint. You can go back to jurisdictional policing with that. So, or you can do a state police and let them have a highway division and a patrol division, So,
and I was raised, to believe that kind of local government inevitably led to corruption, but I just don't see it.
You give anybody power, you're going to have corruption. HOAs are some of the most corrupt. Can be not always, but some of them can be some of the most corrupt organizations.
Tell me about it. Yeah. So but at the same time, I'd rather have a bunch of corrupt HOAs than a single gigantic corrupt federal housing authority.
Right. Yeah. You have more of a say and more of a control at the local level because one voice means more.
Well, no, I know where the head of my HOA lives.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. You have more voice as a whole because your power share is smaller, and like you said, you can physically confront the person and say, "Hey, dude, what the fuck?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My corrupt HOA president was afraid of me, and nobody at the federal level is afraid of me.
Right. Because you're just some peon. Mm-hmm. The only other issue with the tax strike too is was it 51 to 60% of all federal taxes being paid by the top 1%? I'm not sure if the bottom half, the other 40% would make enough difference to mean anything.
Yes, it does. So in total dollars income, no, but the bottom, it's actually worse than 40. It's like 60. Yeah. The bottom 60. Actually, I think I actually did this math once. I think the top 10%. the
I
top
think we
10%
discussed
pay like
before.
90% of the budget. Like the top 10% pay like 90% of the budget. So you could remove the bottom 90 and have not that much difference in income, which is why Trump's plan to remove income tax for the first like 100, he said 120. My math put it at 90. I think you could not collect taxes for the first 90K and basically have a very similar budget.
Oh,
But
you mean go back to the way it originally was at, where it only
in
affected
the
the top?
90s or like pre like 1991, I think is when it was like. And the thing is that 10% shift can matter in it that you have to find other government organizations. Actually, okay, so sorry, I got ahead of myself. Yes, it does matter, not for the federal tax
State
side,
and
but
municipal.
for the Medicare, for the FICA side. So
Yeah.
everybody gets hit with FICA
Mhm.
up to 100 and I think 62 right now, or 172.
I think it's 172. I think is what the
It's 100. So everybody gets hit with FICA. FICA is what pays Medicare and Medicaid.
right.
If that stops getting paid, and which is where probably most of the fraud or a good chunk of the fraud is coming from,
It is.
that will actually like start breaking stuff, because the FICA, the federal dollars are more or less slush. FICA could only be used for Medicare and Medicaid. So yeah, federal income tax is paid for by the top 90 or like the top 10%. Like 90% of that is the top 10%. FICA is basically a flat tax that you cannot deduct out of. You cannot tax credit out of. Everybody's got to eat either 7.65% if you're W2, or you're like me and you're self-employed and you got to eat 15.9.
Yeah.
So
Something a lot of people don't know. They don't know about that hidden match.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. So 15.9% of the income goes away for the most corrupt parts of the system. Yes, it would make a big difference. But that's the only caveat. From the federal income tax, no, it won't make a difference. From the FICA side, yes, it would. And the FICA side is where all the corruption's happening, or at least the majority of it. I consider the military industrial complex to be its own freaking problem.
Yeah, that's a separate animal unto itself.
But it is a problem.
No, it is. But the only problem with that though is living in a state that has some really, really poor counties. You're going to see we've already had like 2 or 3 hospitals in rural counties to where you have counties that don't have hospitals in them.
Yep.
And that's only going to get worse if that were to happen.
Apologies to interrupt, but it's already getting worse. And the fact is, the reason it's getting worse is because money is being taken away from those poor counties and being given to Somalis.
Yeah. No,
so
I don't disagree with you.
If they keep their tax dollars, that actually gives them the upside to help themselves.
Right. Well, and this kind of goes back to my argument about the 17th Amendment. You could mitigate some of this if the states actually had representation in the government. Because then the states could put pressure on the senators to do something about it, such as forcing department heads to actually fucking do their job, or to being more vocal about it, or, hey, do you think Obamacare would have passed if the states were in control of their senators? Fuck no. You think half this stuff that's going on would be going on if the states were in control of their senators? At least a third, at a minimum, a quarter to a third of the crap that gets passed wouldn't get passed. That creates all this fraud, waste, and abuse. Because the states are usually the ones that get affected the most, and they're the ones in the man in the middle. They don't have a voice now. Why do you think they have to always go to court? Because they don't have a voice in government anymore.
I mean, my thing is with the whole voice thing is it doesn't matter if you have a voice in government if A, nobody's going to listen, and B, if you don't have agenda setting power. Your voice doesn't mean shit if somebody who is not like yielding to your wishes puts your problems on the agenda. Who cares if you have a vote if nobody ever votes on the things you care about, because it's not on the docket to vote. Agenda setting power is so freaking determinative on the effectiveness of government.
What you're complaining about is like Michael's number one issue with his favorite organization in the world, the European Union.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the deceptive thing that a lot of your leftists do is they're always like, here, like everybody should get a voice, but I should run the meeting, because it doesn't matter who the voting blocks are. If you're the person running the meeting, you get to set the agenda and decide what gets voted on. And at that point in time, it doesn't matter
Joe,
who's voting. Yeah, who's voting.
Trotsky arranged it for him to be general secretary, and then Stalin's like, let me see what my powers are here as general secretary. Oh, I get to decide when the meeting happens and who gets the invite.
Yep. And no, that is where that is the again, that's what I'm saying. Like the education we're given is that, votes equal voice, and the way the system is set up is the person, votes do equal voices, but who is setting the agenda is more consequential than who's casting the votes.
He's Speaker of the House and Senator. What's the senator?
Even on the state side.
Yeah. Oh no. It's in fact they arrested, indicted, and convicted the former Speaker of the House down here. So,
have you guys ever watched Andrew Wilson?
I can't stand the guy.
Oh, okay. He had a great one.
He's an acquired taste. He has a very
he's definitely
confrontational way of debating.
Oh yeah, but he had this great one where he was debating with this leftist woman and said, "Well, I think we should raise the voting age to 35." And she's like, "Wait, why?" Because that's the age when you can run for president. And she's like, "Well, no. You should be able to vote at 18 and run for elections or any other position before you're 35." And he's like, "So why do we only insist you be 35 before you can run for president?" And she's like, he finally teased out from her that the reason you want that is so you have enough life experience to run for the office. And his argument was that every senator and congressman should be 35, at least 35 before they're allowed to run.
So I have a little caveat to that, though. I actually think there was, and even though there's no writing to actually back this up, I personally think that subtextually, the reason why they also I actually don't think necessarily 35 was put there because of life experience. It's because they wanted to put a system in there to where if there ever was a monarchy or like an aristocracy to come up there, we would not have any child kings.
Yeah.
They
were inspired by the Roman Cursus Honorum. They had read their Livy and their Tully, and they knew about Sulla, and they knew about the bane of child emperors in Rome, which they were obsessed with. And they wanted to create the same thing in America. That's why there's a graduating age between representative to senator and then president.
There you go. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's necessarily about life experience. I think it's a hard coded reason, like a hard coded deterrent or prevention to having royalty. Because if Donald Trump were to be killed, or not even Donald Trump, but basically you couldn't have like a Baron Trump take office if Trump were to be assassinated. Yeah. And I think that's I personally don't think life experience is a good enough reason, because if it was truly about life experience, why did Thomas Jefferson, why were some of the founding fathers, or most of the founding fathers, all under the age of 30?
Oh yeah.
If it was truly about life experience, then why did we trust them to write the Constitution, but not to run for president?
Hey, William Pitt the Younger comes along and is prime minister of England during the Napoleonic Wars, and he's like 22 at the time.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. I think the life experience thing is kind of a reason given, and I think 22 can be a perfectly fine age to lead a country, but I think that's really there to make sure that a 12-year-old doesn't become president.
Yeah.
Because that 12-year-old is literally there to be manipulated by the current. And we did and the thing is, they should have put an age top, because if you don't put an age top, then you get the opposite problem with Joe Biden, where he's literally mentally capable like a child and gets chauffeured around. And I think that's maybe they just don't have foresight to
I
it.
think there's something to what you say, Paul, but I'll put a little twist on it. My belief is that the number one and almost overwhelming concern of the drafters of the Constitution was mitigation of tyranny by pitting the powerful against each other.
Yeah.
And so I think if you look at it through that lens, the key thing about the 35 years old is old enough to have power. In other words, you want to make sure, right? If your entire framework works or rests on pitting powerful people against each other, you want to make sure that you don't let a non-powerful person into that, because then they become a lackey of the powerful.
Yeah, that's fair.
We have Canada, I believe the top age is 75 for politicians.
Yeah, and that's where I think they were a bit short-sighted. They should have had a top age too, because you do like. I think Adam. I think you worded it perfectly. I think the powerful, but I think there's an extension to that, the capable. I think if you're under the age of, actually, no, I can't say that because we have Olympians who are under the age of 20. But like, there is the powerful, but there is like the people who have at least some capacity to lead. And I just think,
but like I said, I don't think they were considering competence. I think they considered the question of competence to be just such a common sense question.
Yeah,
that it wasn't worth trying to legislate.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have some faith in the voters.
Yeah, for me, the one thing they should have done, I think would have worked well, is that if you want to be president, you had to be a governor first. I think that would have worked out well. I mean, you wouldn't have had Eisenhower or Trump, or they would have had to become governors first. But,
no, I don't like that. I hate the professional political class.
Yeah, that's sort of.
Yeah, they didn't want
House of Lords. It feels House of Lords. I feel like the governors become what the Senate is today.
I mean, they already are. Both governors and senators look in the mirror and see a future president. So,
of course.
And Paul, I just had a flash. I think we maybe did meet online. I think we might have spoken on a private chat on X.
Private chat on X?
Like a group chat. I think no. Okay,
I use an alias on X.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. For some reason, I just had an intuition that maybe we had met. And
well, he used to co-host a show on this thing with me. You might have watched it. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Anyway, never mind. It was just a trivial sort of like, hey, wait a minute. I think
no, that's fine. We're getting along now.
Go back real quick to an old subject real quick, because I didn't get a chance to make the point. But the tax system back when it was first implemented back in 1913 for World War I, it literally only affected like the top 10% of the people. I mean, it was like nominal. And it slowly matriculated into the morass that we have now. And it goes back to the old saying, once you vote a tax in, it's no tax is temporary.
Yeah. I remember listening to a friend of mine read the debates on the U.S. taxing thing, and someone had said, maybe we should put a sunset law into this. And someone's like, no, there's no way we're going to keep this around after the First World War. Like, what are you, nuts?
Yeah.
Basically argument.
Yeah, I found out a lot about the tax system when I read the book about the fair tax system, the fair tax program, which I'm a fan of the fair tax system. It's probably the closest thing to being a fair tax as possible if you're going to have a mandated tax system, because you get the government out of your personal life and you put it on the whoever consumes in the United States. So now you make illegals a taxpayer too. Now, does that entitle them to the money? No. But it basically makes anyone and everyone that participates in our economic system a taxpayer.
But if you do that, politicians have no ability to carve out tax incentives to their political patronage.
Bingo! You mitigate their power.
Maybe Russia adopted this particular taxation model.
You know, people are like, well, it's like a VAT tax. It's like, no, VAT tax is different than this.
Yeah, the value-added tax here in Canada.
Yeah, it's much more pernicious. It's probably almost as pernicious as a progressive income tax. But the way it works is basically you only tax new goods and services. So basically, what people don't understand is even the liberal institutes even admitted that there's somewhere between an average of 20 to 30% embedded tax on everything you buy anyways. So basically the cost, not that your cost would go down 20 or 30% once this goes in place and you have a cycle of inventory, because eventually competitive nature will kick in to a certain extent and drive some of the prices down. But by the same token, you get to keep, outside of any state or local taxes, you get to keep 100% of your money, meaning any alternate sources of revenue too also don't get taxed. Your savings don't get taxed. Your investments don't get taxed. Nothing gets taxed. The only thing that gets taxed is any new goods and services. So if you want to avoid and minimize your payments, you could actually see an increase in secondhand markets for clothing, increases in cars and other high ticket and other ticket items, in which where the tax has already been paid. And so if you run a secondhand business that does nothing but sell secondhand clothes or a consignment shop, outside of anything state or local, you get 100% of that. You get to keep 100% of that money.
You know how else you keep 100% of your money? Paying cash.
Yeah.
That's happening. Every span, like that's the flea market. They pay in cash for it's called like launder. Like, do you know the history of the term money laundering?
Vaguely.
So
yeah, well, I didn't, but I just did.
yeah, so
car washes are favorite.
But so laundromats are paid.
Strip clubs are a good one too.
Yeah, are paid with coins, and the laundromats were used as the primary way for I believe it was the mob to move their money around in the open without, like, because the thing is, okay, you're moving millions of dollars around, like they're going to keep an eye on the banks. So how do you move it in plain sight? You move it in a way that shows cash, high volume cash transactions that don't require like any sort of tracking. The most popular high volume way to do this back in, I think, the 60s or the 70s, where this was, started to get cracked down by the FBI, was through laundromats, because how are you going to disprove all the coins coming through, all the dollars coming through were they're untraceable. So what you would have is these laundromats that would be turning in these massive revenues, but like you couldn't trace it, but that's what their vehicle.
You didn't have to turn that in. You just reported what would be expected to be normal and just pocket and just move the rest around.
But that's just it, though. That's how they were able to move their illegal money, was through the laundromats. So that's why they call it money laundering. You basically move what is corrupt funds through obviously legal means. Now, there's better ways to do it now. The better way to do it now is through hotels with ballrooms. That's ballrooms you could charge whatever you want and like don't even show up, and that's the easiest way to do it. And I know this because
basically a cancellation policy. You don't get a refund if you don't cancel within a certain amount of time. They book it 2 weeks out, then cancel it within the no refund.
And boom, you just moved $25,000, and that's totally legit.
Yep.
And it's that I have a background in accounting and with auditing, and that's one of the things where if you just find that in certain areas, like you know where to look for these things. But the thing is, it's either via cash, but the thing is now that cash has become less prevalent, and it's frankly really inefficient to move that much cash. And it's really obvious if your laundromat is turning like $3 million all of a sudden in a population area that's smaller. These things bottleneck out. So you want to move larger volumes of cash. So you need a better mechanism. But to your point, though, will there secondary markets? No, what they'll do is they will use money laundering schemes, and what that can come in the form of, and leases are a great way to do this too. Basically, I can run my business through through this and through like, let's say a family owned strip center, and what happens is I pocket everything cash. I pay the lease. I write the lease off as a cost. So that's part of the money that's staying within the family. I write that off into the lease. I pay it in cash. And then they basically vouch for each other that everything is legit. And then all the controls are basically corrupted at this point in time. So even if you do perform an audit, everything looks legit. And actually that right there is what you're seeing in Somalia, where you got not only the child care center, but the health home care, the medical center, all these things operate. If you rewatch the video, you'll notice they do them in a strip center, and they own the strip center. So basically they vouch for each other that they're legitimate businesses. So even if you do an audit, everything comes off clean because all the controls there's the presumption that surely you won't know every step of the process. And that's just wrong. They do. So and the thing is, what you're describing is actually exist already, more intricate, and they simply just don't pay tax. They pay less taxes by not paying taxes.
No, I'm just looking at it as a generalization. I'm not taking into account the fraud aspect and stuff like that. I'm just taking a look at it purely from a tax standpoint and tax advantage standpoint of did you create basically a new market and a secondary market, and in which case, because you can't have a secondary market unless the new goods got sold. So eventually you run out of secondary goods, and so new goods have to get sold. And now you make anyone that consumes the new goods and services a taxpayer. And basically what you would get, you'd also get a prebate from the government every year based on what you would spend at the poverty level for the basic necessities, food, water, medicine, clothes, stuff like that. And you would get a prebate every month based on what you would be anticipated in paying taxes on those new goods and services at the poverty level. Because theoretically speaking, anything above poverty level could be considered classified as luxury. So that's I'm a fan of it simply because if you're going to have a forced tax system, that would, to me, makes more sense because you simplify the tax code, you take the individual out of it, and you put it on the businesses, which businesses are like, well, the tax is like, you do that now, so shut up. It's like, in fact, it would simplify your compliance cost even more. So,
well, so the issue that they have here is it's not, so the cost is still okay. So you're looking at it from the perspective of the individual compliance costs, which you're right, can be reduced. The problem is once you scale that compliance cost, and even if it's a low cost, you scale that to 1 million people, it's not cost effective, especially when you have to and that's not even including geographical areas. Because once you have to start going out, then the cost goes up even more. And then you end up with the IRS basically either having to exude a lot of effort for not a lot of money. And then the Somalis do what the Somalis do, where they basically say, why are they targeting us? Like all these people out here and they're targeting us. And then they fold due because they claim they are being targeted, and they are being targeted because they operate as a collective. And then when you bust them, they're throwing out claims that they're throwing all this effort out because it does require that much effort because they are, covering for each other to get tax dollars. And then there's the lawsuits and the political capital that ensue, and then it just becomes not worth it. And that's where they set up their models to make it not worth it for the IRS to prosecute. And what really sucks for that is what you're speaking of, I think, is a really good perspective, but unfortunately the costs are actually lowest for enforcement for the people who are willing to cooperate with the system from the get-go, which is why we are getting letters in the mail from the IRS for $600 Zelle payments, because we will cooperate with the fines. We are not going to sit here and collectively band together to push these stuff off. And it's
that's what I'm saying. It puts all the compliance on companies that would have less of incentive to do that, because most legitimate companies, they're going to comply. There is no compliance on the individual level at all because you're not taxed at all. You're only worried about your state and local. The only compliance cost would come into play is at the company, at the corporate level. So basically, meaning like if you were selling a new camera, you would have, we'll say the guesstimate right now is around 23-25%. The product you sell, say at $399, already has that 25% embedded tax into it. You can either add it on at the point of sale. I don't think it's added on at the point of sale. I think it's added on, in the price itself.
So it has to be added at the point of sale because you can't. It would be just
the way it was structured, the way the law was structured. I think it's actually in the price. You can't. I think it was the way it was. But either way you go, it gives you more of an option of how much you want to participate in the system of paying taxes too. Because if you want to buy nothing but used goods and used clothes and stuff like that, you drastically reduce what you're paying because you only pay like if that used shirt, which is still in great condition, is $5. You pay $5. That business may have cost them $1 to get it, and that's $4 they get to keep outside of the 25%. No, they get to keep the $4 in profit because if the tax has already been paid on the product.
So what you're talking is an inventory tax, which actually already there's a thing that's
no, because no, you don't pay it. The tax only gets paid until it's sold. You don't get taxed on it for just sitting there.
But you're counting on the cooperation of the business to actually pay that tax after it's sold.
Well, yeah, it's no different than a sales tax. What they do now with sales tax and other taxes.
But that thing is, people are already usurping that through paying cash.
You still have to pay sales tax on it. You still have to pay sales.
Not if it's not on the books. And that's the issue with compliance that they're running into. Those are some of the issues. Like everything you're talking about, that has been identified, and all I could say is they do their best to enforce, and unfortunately, the path of least resistance for enforcement is to go after people who don't fight the enforcement, to me, the developing problem that we have with the current fraud being uncovered, because everybody knows it was there, and I think that's why this is getting so much traction, is because, yeah, all the Somali fraud was shown. We know. Everybody knows. This is an open secret. The problem that you have as a taxpayer is that these fraudulent companies are more profitable than legitimate companies.
Right.
So the question is, why? Like there's a base level question of why should I pay taxes? But then if you're trying to run a business, why should I run a legitimate? Why shouldn't I cheat? Why shouldn't I commit fraud? Because if they're not going to get enforced on, maybe I should try my luck, because these daycare centers are running $900,000 a year, and their costs are nothing because they're not actually doing the job. So these people are making money hand over fist. I mean, they're like, you're going it from the perspective of people who want to do the right thing. But the thing is, there is no incentive to do the right thing right now. And it's not even a little bit, like 10% more. Like, no, like it's 10 times more to do it the corrupt way than it is to. And you know what? Maybe you do get caught, but maybe you're going to be like the Somalis, be 50 million ahead and then just get out of Dodge by the time, why not do that?
I've been trying to figure out how to get in onto this stuff. It's pretty good money for nothing.
Exactly. So and why not? Because if they're not going to do anybody, okay, then it's unfortunate because the people who do want to do right, they're suckers, because they're actually suckers. And that's where, again, I go back to the prisoner's dilemma. This entire corruption and scheming requires the cooperation of the people who are willing to comply with enforcement. And it isn't a matter of just cost. It's a matter of will. Are you willing to shut these Somali places down, be called racist, and say, fuck you, I'm gonna take it down anyway, and I'm gonna deport you, or do whatever else you got to do. And there is no will to enforce the law.
There's no will now. I think there will be more will coming down in the future as we get rid of some of as we see the future generation, the boomer generation go away.
Well, the thing is we've been conditioned that if we enforce the law on certain groups of people, period, that it's racist.
Yeah,
Right.
but here's the thing. Millennials and Zoomers, they don't care. The magical words of racism, anti-Semitism, all that, they don't care anymore. They've been so radicalized.
Look at Nick Fuentes.
They are like Owen. You look in the private chat if you guys want to see what Owen thinks we should do, and he's pretty right. And like, they don't care. They're not affected. You call them racist. They're like, fine, I'm a racist. Now get the hell out of my country. That's what's happening in England. We're seeing that in some of the other European countries. England's easiest because they speak our language, but this is coming down the pike. And as the boomers shuffle off their moral coil and stop being the biggest voting bloc, and the other younger voting blocs come in, they will not be tolerant of this, and that's where the violent conflict, I fear, is going to come from. Is that all these? You got the socialists on the one and communists on the one side, and young people like Owen, who are just going to be fine. We're going to take this out, point us in the right direction, and we'll start the shooting. And luckily for the red guys, they control the food supply. The Democrats or these communists don't understand where their food comes from. They think it comes from the grocery store. Yep. I worked in groceries for over 20 years. There's something called the just-in-time inventory system.
Yep, I'm all too familiar with that.
And we have 3 days of food in the warehouses in the cities.
Currently, you're lucky if you even got that right now.
Don't forget about all the unripe stuff that Cisco has.
Yeah, like so.
There's a lot there.
When these large cities start getting their food shipments getting cut off, what are they going to do? Cannibalism.
Yeah,
like that's the destination of travel. A lot of people. I was hoping that the Trump 2.0 would be able to fix this, and maybe someone will fix it before the likely thing. But the history of the world shows that every 250 years, we always get fat, happy, and stupid. And last time it happened was the French Revolution, and Napoleon did what he did. And it ended with Napoleon. Before that, it was the 30 Years' War. Before that, it was the Black Death. So it's not always a war that's triggering it, but there is like a whole bunch of conditions that we've already well surpassed. There's 3 conditions that trigger civil war. Like, there's a guy called What of Alt Hist who talks about the 3 conditions. I haven't watched them all, so I forget what they are. But one of them is the marriage age has to go over the age of 29, and I think we hit 32.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, you're got 2 guys on here that aren't married right now.
Yeah, I'm not married.
Me, yeah, okay, that makes it 3 then.
I'm not married.
I'm not married either.
Yeah.
Oh, and congratulations, you made it.
Owen managed to do it. Great woman too. You think Owen's fire? You should hear his wife.
Woo! I've heard her in the background. Woo. But no, I mean we're definitely at an inflection point. The question is are we going to be able to make the changes before this gets ugly? Are we going to be able to make enough changes to maybe give bias more time? And I'm seeing that dwindle day by day. I'm seeing that.
Is ugly is the default setting.
Yeah.
And honestly, I
in an anomaly of history.
And the last couple of generations have been fooled because there's no long-term memory. There's no historical memory. So people don't realize that ugly is the default setting of humans.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, Adam, because that's something I was actually reflecting on these last couple of days, because my industry has just taken a torpedo in real estate. And, it's making me I chose this industry because I thought, it could waver the worst storms, but here we are, in a correction that needs to happen. But I think to myself, like, I was so sure of myself 3 years ago that this was the right way for me to go. And I think to myself, like, I'm thinking about all my decisions that led up to this point, because I'm really, having to scrap for work right now. And, you know, I feel like I'm taking a step back just as a man. Like, I'm just like, damn, did I seriously screw up? Did I, you know, take it all for granted? And to a certain extent I did, because I genuinely thought like this day wouldn't come where, you know, the real estate market is correcting for the better for the average person. But the thing is, it is at my expense, and I don't know when it's going to get better. And maybe it does get better, but how old am I when that happens? And the thing is, I think back in time, the last 100 years, like, well, is this truly unique, or is this something that has been cyclical for the last 100 years in American history? And you know what? It is cyclical. The Great Depression, the 70s. I mean, the thing is, nothing like stability is an illusion. And I think to myself, should I put more in the 401k? Should I put? And no, they're getting creamed right now. Should I have done other stuff? And the fact is, if you're looking for something, like, nothing has held steady the last 100 years. It's constant movement, it's constant adaptation. And really, the only thing that, and really, it's not even a matter you make $10 million and you sit on it, because the fact is, you could lose that, like, that could get withered away too.
Yep.
And it's never enough. Like, you have to constantly be growing, you have to constantly be going up. And yeah, the default setting is messy. And I guess I convinced myself that, like, it was never gonna be like god awful. Like, there'll be ups and downs, but it'll never be like I would never.
I was raised the opposite.
Huh?
I was raised the opposite. I was raised to survive civilizational collapse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was raised in the 90s where, you know, it was such a hopeful time. You know, the USSR was collapsing, and we were on our way to world peace, and we were going to enter a post-scarcity society. Like, the 90s kids really, I think, were raised on so much hope, which I think, you know, does lead to some of the entitlement, because, you know, we never had to struggle, or rather, we never dealt with scarcity like anybody born before us had to deal with, or their parents had to deal with.
I mean, I would hardly call what the boomers had to deal with scarcity.
No, well, the thing is, they may not have had to deal with it, but their parents did.
Yeah,
with, like, the Great
I
Depression.
I was raised to never assume that society would be there to take care of me. I was raised to know how to build everything I needed to build, fix everything I needed to fix, shoot anything I needed to shoot.
Yeah.
That's how I was raised.
No, and the thing is, we were raised by a generation that had everything set up for them.
I was
And then sold it all down the river.
to avoid that. My father definitely, he grew up during the Depression, so I have a little bit of that.
No, I will say this. I have noticed the millennial generation, and especially Gen Zers, being more free-spirited in the sense of not willing to stay within the confines of the system, and just basically saying fuck it and doing their own thing. Either, like, some of the channels I watch are sailing channels and homestead channels, and a lot of them are millennial and Gen Zers, basically saying fuck it. If the only way I can survive is buy some land I can afford out of 5-10 acres out in the middle of nowhere, and then create a YouTube channel or some semblance of a form of stream of income from something, you know, where I'm showing how I'm doing this homestead and making, you know, once I start taking off with about 50 to 150,000 subscribers, where you're making decent money, where you can go out and actually buy stuff and grow your own food, hunt for your own food. You know, you're starting to see an increase. In fact, you got channels that are dedicated on how to homestead in a residential neighborhood. How can you homestead in that type of situation, to where you can grow your own food and stuff like that. So you're seeing a rise in that desire, like you were taught, to be more self-sustaining and not dependent on society itself. I'm kind of in that Gen X, especially late Gen X, which is what I am, is kind of that it's kind of that middle ground of a little bit of boomerism and a little bit of millennialism, in terms of, like, the free spirit, because I got a lot of free spirited Gen Xers that have gone down the homesteading route and other routes. But I also have had some of my Gen X friends turned full commie, you know, and most of them went to college. And so it's like I went to college, but I went to a local college and I only got a 2-year degree because I already knew what I wanted to do. So it wasn't like I was going to be easily corrupted by that bullshit. So, but then again, I also, you know, spent time in the Coast Guard and stuff like that and got exposed to other countries and got to speak to people from other countries, like actually get firsthand experience from talking to people who live in real abject poverty, who live in these countries that we constantly threaten to, you know, to dabble with their governments and threaten to invade. And it's very interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic. America is the country everybody loves to hate because everybody wants to be like America. They want to be profit. They want to be as powerful as we are. They want to be as rich as we are. But they're, because of their society, their culture, and stuff like that, it's extremely difficult to get there because they don't have the because you're dealing with much deeper institutions, much deeper cultures than just a culture that's only what 250 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, relatively speaking, from a country standpoint, we're still infants in this world.
Well, that's what makes it. My grandfather was a Russian who escaped Russia and came to the U.S. and that's why I was raised that way. You know, he saw civilization will collapse, and and you know back and so it's funny when you were talking about some of the beginning. You were talking about setting up a podcast and I'll, not to be mean, but what I heard was, okay, building your future around something could disappear as soon as the power is turned off.
Well, they were just used as a form of revenue.
Yeah, but I mean that's what I heard.
Yeah.
I was taught, and then
it was not just.
They'll be much better prepared for when the power's cut off.
And back to what Paul said about getting money in the bank. I was raised to understand that the only negotiable value I had were my skills.
Mm-hmm.
They
can't take your skills away from you. They can take everything. They can take a lot of things from you, but what your knowledge and your skill set's hard to take away from.
To be honest, they can take that away too with the way licensings work.
I was going to say
they take away your license. I mean, you can do stuff under the table, but if you take away those licensing things are a method of enforcement, and there's not even protection.
Well, that's
you're always vulnerable, and
that is the civilization. So when civilization is around, they can do that. When it collapses, it's a free market. But yes, you're right.
Yeah, but the thing is, your value is in that certification, though. Like in
a civil society, yes.
You don't have to convince me. I spent the last 8 years out of work because of that.
Yeah, no, and that's it's just it's one of the things that I'm just like I'm having to. Because the thing is, I'm having to go take work wherever I drove maybe 2,000 plus miles in December scrapping for work. Because I had to go where the work was. And you know what? I was quoting low because I needed to get it done. And the thing is, I haven't had to work like this since I started my business. And the thing is, it's one of those things where you have to think I'm thinking 3 years ahead of okay, what if this gets worse? What does this look like if it gets worse?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if the thing is if it doesn't get worse, I don't know what worse even can look like at this point. I actually see more routes for it getting better because because I'm hopeful, but because I don't see how it could get worse. And that's a good thing because that means it's healing. Like we're back to reality. That's like everything getting worse is not really getting worse. What it really is us returning to reality. Yeah. Because we haven't been living in reality.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was my point. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
The housing appreciation is just so stupidly out of whack.
Well, that's
in
where
the last 20 years, 20, 25 years.
well, it's corrected a lot right now, specifically with houses that are like under 350 that have like dropped 10 to 20% in the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And and if you're in that market, you think the world's ending right now. But if you're over 350, you've gone down 5 to 10, which is not nothing, but it's not like catastrophic, like 20% down. And what
Well,
I'm
I'll tell you,
seeing,
Paul, I'll tell you, I've been tracking real estate in Florida on the coast, down 20, 30, 40, 50%. And these are
well, that's Florida is a unique situation. There's more going on in Florida.
Yeah, Florida is its own animal when it comes
That's
to
its
real
own
estate.
animal. There's other stuff that's unique to Florida that is causing that to happen in Florida. That is
There's
not that's
property tax issues and insurance issues.
the insurance
Yeah.
issues. The insurance issues are the bigger are the catalyst issue there. The what is it? What was the first one you said before insurance?
Property taxes.
Yeah, the taxes issue. I think
It's the way they structure. It's because how they structure them.
Yeah,
it's based off your purchase price at
Yeah.
the time of purchase, and it only goes up a set amount every year after that. So you could actually be, if you own your house outright, you could be paying less than what it's actually valued at sale. So
Yeah.
meaning your tax bill can go from like, and in fact, one of the guys I follow is a realtor down in Southwest Florida. He's like, there are cases of people when they bought the house, they were quoted $6,000 a year for taxes. When they got their tax bill, even homesteaded, it was $12,000.
Yeah. And well, the thing that I'm seeing here, and just for context, my profession is a real estate appraiser. And what I'm seeing is the sub 350 market.
I built Goldworks.
Goldworks?
Yeah. I created that. Well, from a technical point of view.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, the cool footnote. The thing that I'm seeing is the biggest benefactor right now are renters, because there is this POS like rundown crack shack that I did a private appraisal for 2 weeks ago that back in May was trading at 180, and the rental for it, and here's the thing, the rental for it for a 1,200 square foot 3-bedroom 1-bath crack shack. Want to take a guess at what the fair market rent was right now?
Where's this at?
This is in a town called Lamarck. It's basically sort of the ghetto of Houston.
It's what was it? All right, say that again.
Rental value?
1,200, yeah, 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, and it is in terrible condition. Do you know what the fair market rent of that property is right now?
500?
30. I was about to say 3,500.
No, it's 1,350.
Wow, okay. It's lower than
This is like across the street from like a store that does like a prostitution ring. It's in a very bad area. 1,350.
Yeah.
Here's the deal, though. Back in like April, it was 1,650.
Yeah.
So the thing is, this lower sub 350 category, those values are directly correlated to the rents. And the thing is, once you remove all the renters, because the thing is, two companies that are really struggling right now, D.R. Horton and Lennar, they make terrible quality houses.
Oh God!
And they don't have repeat customers for single family residences because you only need to buy them once to know to never buy one again. But they have repeat customers, and those are investors. Why? Because you could buy one of their homes for $250 and rent it out for $2,200. The thing is, though, rentals have gone down 10 to 20% across the board. So if their value is directly tied to rentals, then that means if the rents went down 10 to 20%, so did the values, because nobody wants to live in these houses. Nobody wants to purchase one of these houses. And the thing is, the gap between somebody who's buying a $300,000 house and somebody who's renting, it exceeds $1,000 a month. So there's no, you should like, right. It's never been a better time in the last like 5 years to rent right now.
Yeah.
And this is where the floor is being pulled for a lot of the housing market across the country. But the thing is, there's no investor dollars to buy investment properties because the rentals cannot return. Because if it does not make sense to buy a house for $250K, even if your max rent is $1,400 a month. It does not make financial sense to do that.
Mhm.
So all these big, builders are really struggling right now because they're old clientele and that's why even the BlackRock people and like it doesn't make sense for them to rent either, because if rentals went down across the board, it still doesn't make sense to even buy it at a premium price because you're not getting those rentals anymore. Now and on top of that, the quality's not even good, so you can't even sell this to single family residence people for the price that you wanted at. And the thing is, as it should be, they were never worth that much, and that's why the prices should be going down a lot right now. And it really is tailored back to the deportations that are going on right now, where you remove 5 to 10% of a lot of markets, and then the rental market collapses. And yeah,
I just want to say thanks for everything. I got to run. I got a business call I got to take, but it was really great listening to you guys. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it, you.
Yes.
Bye.
Yeah, and but yeah, the Florida deal is its own separate deal where it costs too much to have those properties. So the rents need to be even higher for Florida because you have to incur the property taxes. You have to beat the property taxes and the insurance. So not only did your property taxes go up because of the valuations and the insurances go up, now rents are going down. That's why you're seeing, values getting torpedoed in Florida, because you got three pressures.
Well, also you got the fact that they got hit with some hurricanes in the last couple of years that did some real serious damage, especially on the West Coast, and they're still recovering. They're still recovering from some of that. So, in fact, the guy I watched, Ben Greco, out of Southwest Florida, he handles Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, that area, and he's like, dude, they got houses that are still being rebuilt from hurricanes 2-3 years ago because just the demand was so high because so many got hit. There's another thing they're doing too to kind of mitigate some of the insurance costs. So you get like in Cape Coral, you got a lot of canal systems and stuff like that. So what they do is when they rebuild the house, or they have to rebuild a house or build a new house, they take the land, they level it off at the floodplain, and then raise the platform at which the house sits on gets raised about 18 to 36 inches above the floodplain,
Yeah,
the 100-year floodplain. So that way, in an effort to pull the house out of the floodplain itself, so you don't get nailed with the floodplain aspect on your insurance. I've heard, some say it's the whole property. If any part of your property hits it with your house, it affects your house or not, you get hit with it. But I've also heard too is like it's any part of your house that touches the floodplain, then you have to have a flood insurance.
Yeah, but the thing is though, that is really awful with the flood insurance is they're still overcharging you anyway. And I'm going to make this argument too. They are not strapped for cash. All those homes existed well before those hurricanes, and they were valued very high. They were collecting premiums for years, and they got FEMA funding to help mitigate those costs. They don't want to pay.
Right.
It is not a matter of they don't have the money. They don't want to pay.
Well, it's like when they get hit what was it? God, like early 2000s when they get hit with 4 hurricanes in 1 year. I mean, like there was no part of Florida that didn't get hit with a hurricane that year. And they had record payouts, but yet all the insurance companies still made record profits.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. They don't want to pay.
I'm like, how the fuck? Well, the other issue too, as well, from what I understand, is Florida's unique in the sense that you can do assignment of benefits, or AOB. So basically, you can turn it over to your contractor to finish out the claim, and so you had a lot of fraud in that, and that's the reason why, like, contractors saying they did work that they didn't do work on, and stuff like that. So Florida, I think, got rid of the AOB assignment of benefits now. It was real rampant in the roofing aspect
Yep.
because you didn't have to have a hurricane. A strong storm could come in and give you a claim on your roof, either through hail or wind damage or whatever. So I mean, and that's not a problem that's exclusive to Florida. That's you pick a state and you can have that problem.
Mhm.
So that's where they were seeing the highest level of fraud was with roofers and then general contractors. And they changed how the assignment of benefits has worked. That's made some progress and some help. But they admit it's probably going to take a few years before the ramifications of that law you start really seeing the benefits of it with the insurance companies. Now, some insurance companies have left, and some now are talking to come about. Some are talking about coming back into the Florida market, but they're starting to be more selective. Like, basically, if you own a home, basically anywhere within a flood zone that will get nailed by anything above a category 1, it's almost going to be next to impossible to insure. At least at the current state. So I follow it because that's where I want to retire. I want to retire down in Florida. And so I've talked about, and I joke, but I'm actually kind of dead serious that I ain't so certain I would be better off buying some dock space where you could live aboard a boat, buy a boat, live on a boat. I'd probably come out about the same because hurricane comes through, I pull up, go on, I'm out. I didn't lose my home. I didn't lose shit.
Mm-hmm.
And
so yeah,
and the way they're building boats nowadays, man, good Lord. It's like living in a house.
I mean, what has to happen is a few things. They need to, one, the overall cost of homes is going to have to go down just as a start, because the homes are literally, it's not even that they're uninsurable. Even if you don't insure the home, can you cover $500,000 to rebuild the home? Or if you're going to rebuild the home, like you need to build the first home in such a manner that if it does get washed away or destroyed, it's affordable for you to do it. And the average person, if they build their dream home, put all their savings, into that dream home, and it gets washed away, and it's uninsured, it's gone. It's not coming back.
Yeah.
And that's just, there was an assumption that insurance would cover all of it. I think there is a way, like what we've done in Houston, where we've put down a very intricate levy system and it works like a charm, like 99% of the time. Florida probably does need to include that in their infrastructure, and that would help out a lot with that. But the God's honest truth is the quality needs to go up. There's got to be certain building standards that are unique to Florida that mitigate against like roofs and stuff like that. And what
they actually have their own code. There actually is a separate ICC code for Florida.
Yeah. And
it's ridiculous. But talking to my dad, who's looked through some of this stuff, and talking to some builders who look through this stuff, is like some of the recommendations are idiotic. It's like it makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
It's like you're like one of the guys that built a house across from a place our family used to have. He was an engineer from Florida State University, and he bought a lot across from us. He built it with filled in cinder block, then insulation foam, and then another set of concrete decorative block on the outside. And he built it in a manner where all the living spaces were on the second floor and all the open common areas were on the bottom floor. And it had a porch wrap around, and he built it where he wedged it in amongst the overgrowth. So he cleared out just enough to put the home and to put a driveway back to the back area, and enough in the back to have somewhat of a backyard, but left all the growth up that comes up to about where the second floor starts. So basically, if he got hit with a hurricane, short of him losing his roof, he's probably going to walk away with very minimal damage
Right.
because of the way he built it. And my dad looked at how he was building it, and he's like, this dude's building this to last. He's like, the way I see some of the stuff, techniques he's using, he's like, this is stuff you would use if you're building a home to last here in Florida.
Yeah.
Like using redundant tie down systems, using concrete block for your exterior walls, like filled in concrete block, because that provides more wind resistance load, impact resistant load, stuff like that. Like some of the homes that are being built down there, like there was one home that was literally the entire wall floor, and each floor, including the subfloor for the roof, were concrete, including the roof itself was a shaped concrete.
Yeah, and you know what? Those types of standards will probably have to be normalized and uniform if you want to build in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Well, when they rebuild, okay, you want to say an interesting one in Mexico Beach when they're rebuilding it, almost everything on 98 that goes through Mexico Beach, about everything from 98 to Beachside, is built on stilts. Every bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything on the backside, most of it, the newer stuff, is being built on stilts. But the further back you go, it's being more conventional.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically, they're taking the lessons learned from the homes. Like one of the new homes, it wasn't built on stilts. It was built kind of like the other house I described, where the common areas were on the bottom floor, but they used additional tie downs for the entire home. So when the water came in, all he lost was his bottom floor, and it basically, like you said, flushed out the bottom floor. So all he had to do was just dry it out, clean it out, and then just refurbish the bottom floor.
Okay.
That was it.
Guys, we've been streaming for over 3 hours now.
Now the big thing is putting in roll up and roll down hurricane shutters, or
James, please.
some of them even do the hurricane shutters that are already built in and act not just as hurricane shutters, but shade.
James, buddy.
I'm ending the stream.
So yeah, Venezuela bad.
Yeah. Sorry, we were originally talking about Venezuela. We got
Did I miss something?
A topic bit. Now we're getting to Florida construction techniques. This is actually going out on my channel still. I much as I find it interesting, and it's great.
Did I miss something?
It's a 3 hour stream.
We're timed out.
Yeah.
Oh.
You guys are more than welcome to. We can definitely take this up on Zoom or something like that. But I just.
I can't hear Paul.
Yeah.
I can't hear him.
Oh, no, I'm not talking.
No, I'm talking about the other dude. I can't hear him.
Oh, David.
Oh, okay.
David, yeah, sorry.
I'm not muted.
Yeah. So what David's basically saying is he's posting this on his channel, and he's just wrapping it up, and we're just a hair off topic, because then the conversation initially started about Venezuela.
Yeah.
And went into government corruption, and now we're talking about the specifics of real estate and construction in Florida.
Mm.
So we are officially down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It always ends up that way.
Yeah, and that's fine. I enjoyed it. But I want to thank all my panelists for today. And if you like this kind of stuff and you want to see more of it,
I'm glad you can hear, because I can't. It's driving me nuts.
Maybe it's on your end.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, David, for always being such a good host.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.